Chapter 462. And Lin didn't refuse and followed Elder Zhu and Su Xiaolan into the White Heavenly Tower. After passing through the rippling restriction, an extremely vast energy fluctuation swept toward them. And Lin was greeted by the sight of a dazzling array of artifacts, all of which exuded a peerless light as they hovered in the air. Some of them were even wriggling in the air as if they had a life of their own. He looked at the 20 or so artifacts and detected the energy fluctuations emanating from them to find that all of them were immortal tools. And Lin's eyes almost popped out of their sockets, but Elder Zhu didn't stop. Instead, he continued toward the second level. There were only 3 levels in the White Heavenly Tower, and it was said that the top level contained the sect's most powerful divine tool that only the sect leader was allowed to use. As for what was on the second level, and Lin didn't know, so he was very curious. The second level of the White Heavenly Tower was a little strange. It was a golden space with no end in sight. "Come out, vermilion bird, origin treasures," Elder Zhu yelled. Immediately afterward, 6 glowing artifacts flew toward Lin and Su Xiaolan. And Lin and Su Xiaolan were both rooted to the spot upon hearing the vermilion bird origin treasures. The vermilion bird origin treasures were renowned throughout the vermilion bird sect, and they were considered to be the most precious treasures in the vermilion bird sect. They were artifacts that were even more valuable than immortal tools, and it was said that each and every one of them possessed unfathomable power and were priceless. There were a total of 10 vermilion bird origin treasures. Aside from the 6 here, only sect leader Zhu Xiuza, Grand Elder Sidu Feng, and Great Elder Chen Xinran possessed vermilion bird origin treasures. One of them had already been lost. "Come, you two can choose something that suits you," said Elder Zhu with a smile. "That isn't a good idea," and Lin gulped to prevent himself from drooling. "What's there to be embarrassed about? You're both disciples of the Vermilion Bird sect and have made great contributions to the sect. After some discussion, the panel of elders has decided that you have the right to inherit one of the Vermilion Bird origin treasures," Elder Zhu said. Unexpectedly, Su Xiaolan didn't say anything this time. Instead, she stared blankly at a fiery red bracelet with a slightly dazed and nostalgic look on her face. She pointed at the bracelet and said, "I want it." "The Vermilion Bird bracelet?" "Yes, it should belong to you as well." Elder Zhu's expression also went blank for a moment before he nodded in affirmation. Then, a white formation appeared on the red bracelet. The crimson bracelet seemed to be attracted by some kind of aura and flew to Su Xiaolan's side with great intelligence. Then, it nimbly wrapped itself around Su Xiaolan's white wrist. And Lin sighed in his heart. This bracelet really matched Su Xiaolan. In the future, he could give gifts without the bracelet. There were only 5 vermilion bird origin tools left. One was a shield, one was a sword, one was a bead, one was a brush, and one was a mirror. As a sword immortal, Lin immediately set his sights on the long sword, which was shimmering with golden flames. He pointed at the long sword and said, "I want that sword." Elder Zhu nodded with a smile. The vermilion bird sword is peerlessly sharp and can draw upon the flames of heaven and earth to incinerate all things. It's the best weapon for killing and is indeed suitable for you. And Lin nodded with excitement. As a sword immortal, how could he only have a black sword? He had to have a gorgeous and powerful sword when he was flexing. Elder Zhu made a series of hand seals, and a white formation appeared on the red bracelet as the long sword began to ring. The long sword then slowly began to move. However, it moved backward and flew away right in front of the 3 of them. And Lin, "Elder Zhu, what's going on?" Elder Zhu was a little awkward. "The vermilion bird sword seems to have rejected me. But that's all right. This kind of situation is extremely rare, but it's still within the realm of normal." And Lin's chest constricted upon hearing this. "This kind of situation is extremely rare? That's all right. Speaking of which, Elder Zhu, are you trying to comfort me?" He looked at the remaining 4 vermilion bird origin treasures and was just about to continue choosing when the crimson bead and paintbrush seemed to have sensed something and trembled lightly before flying away. And Lin looked at Elder Zhu with confusion in his eyes. Elder Zhu turned to Enlin with an innocent expression. How about you pick some more? If you can't, I'll ask the Grand Elder again. Enlin's lips twitched as he looked at the shield and mirror before him. Pick some more? What was there to pick? This was basically a F** king choice between the two. This vermilion bird shield is extremely sturdy. Not only can it summon the will of the vermilion bird to defend against external attacks, but it can also absorb external attacks and convert them into its own energy, either to replenish its owner's vital energy or to unleash it as an attack. The vermilion bird mirror is an extremely intelligent and knowledgeable mirror, so you can ask it if you have any questions. On top of that, it also has a concealment ability, and after charging, it has a 100% chance of reflecting an enemy's attack. Elder Zhu explained the effects of the two vermilion bird origin treasures in an earnest manner in order to divert Enlin's attention. Enlin immediately felt a lot more at ease upon hearing these effects. There was no other reason for this other than the fact that both of the remaining two items sounded quite good. The vermilion bird shield was about the same as the brick, but it had an additional ability to absorb energy, to replenish vital energy, and to reflect energy. As for the mirror, it wasn't very powerful in battle, but it had a rather peculiar ability. Knowledgeable and knowledgeable, concealment ability, reflection ability. It also sounded like he was pretty awesome. Which one should I choose? Enlin stroked his chin with a hesitant expression. I'll choose the vermilion bird shield, Enlin said. He felt like the vermilion bird shield had a similar effect to the vermilion bird mirror's reflection ability. The vermilion bird shield could also defend and convert energy, so it was a lot more domineering, which suited Enlin's style. All right. Elder Zhu made a hand seal, and a white spell formation appeared over the vermilion bird shield, allowing it to recognize Enlin as its master. The vermilion bird shield shuddered lightly before flying away, as if it were extremely afraid of something. It disappeared into the boundless golden space before disappearing from everyone's field of vision. Enlin, Elder Zhu, Su Xiaolan, a cold breeze blew past, and Enlin felt a little cold. In this cold and distant world, he really wanted a blanket that could give him a hint of warmth. Did I not wash my face or my hands today? Or did I not acknowledge Senior as my master? Enlin looked at the two people beside him with a disconsolate expression. Enlin, don't give up. Don't you still have a mirror? Su Xiaolan consoled him. There is still a mirror? Enlin's lips twitched slightly. He had already been rejected 4 times in a row, and his heart was throbbing with pain. Was he going to be stabbed in the heart again? He pulled out his evil-slaying sword and stroked it gently. Little Xia, you're the only one who treats me the best. You're completely different from the sluts out there. As expected, the two of us are perfect for each other. A cold voice with a hint of disdain sounded. Hee, weren't you just saying that I'm ugly and that you wanted to change to a vermilion bird sword? Enlin, weren't you in my storage ring? How did you know? Evil slaying sword. F***CK off. Enlin's heart throbbed with pain, and he really wanted to find someone to console him. Mr. Enlin, you still have the vermilion bird mirror to choose from, so you should give it a try. Elder Zhu hesitated for a long time before finally speaking to Enlin. There weren't many people who had the right to choose the vermilion bird origin tool, only about a dozen or so, and the vermilion bird origin tool would be returned to the sect after their deaths. However, none of them were like Enlin, who was mercilessly abandoned by all of the vermilion bird origin tools. Elder Zhu didn't know how to deal with this situation, so he could only let Enlin try first. Enlin refused to give up and summoned his Gundams. Gundams 1, Gundams 2, unleash the ionic deprivation protection formation and trap the vermilion bird mirror inside. I don't believe you'll be able to escape. The two Gundams immediately charged toward the vermilion bird mirror and spread open their arms to unleash a blue ionic deprivation formation of 100 feet in radius, which enshrouded the vermilion bird mirror within. Elder Zhu, we can begin now, Enlin said with a smile. Elder Zhu, Su Xiaolan. Chapter 463. Elder Zhu's face convulsed as he looked at the vermilion bird mirror trapped within the ionic deprivation protection formation. What kind of mental blow did Enlin have to go through to force himself on Enlin? He thought about it for a moment before making a hand seal to make the vermilion bird mirror acknowledge Enlin as its master. A white spell formation appeared on the surface of the vermilion bird mirror, and the vermilion bird mirror shuddered before fleeing into the distance. Boom! The vermilion bird mirror crashed into the ionic deprivation protection formation, upon which a resounding boom erupted. "You're not getting away!" Enlin roared as he pounced toward the vermilion bird mirror. The vermilion bird mirror immediately fled in another direction, but it crashed into the ionic deprivation protection formation again, causing it to feel dizzy. The vermilion bird mirror was extremely fast, but it wasn't powerful enough to break through the barrier. Thus, Enlin and the vermilion bird mirror chased each other around the protective formation. In the end, Enlin pinned the vermilion bird mirror down with a sinister smile on his face. "Hee, you won't be able to escape from me. Just accept me as your master." The vermilion bird mirror trembled uncontrollably. "Why do I feel like Enlin is the antagonist?" Elder Zhu murmured to himself upon seeing this. Su Xiaolan massaged her brows as if she couldn't bear to watch. Enlin didn't waste any more time with words and began to use his power to refine the vermilion bird mirror. However, to his surprise, he was obstructed by an extremely powerful force. "Oomph, what a stubborn mirror. Let me show you what I'm made of." Divine inspection technique. A white light flashed past Enlin's eyes as a stream of information flowed from the vermilion bird mirror into Enlin's mind. Vermilion bird mirror. A mirror crafted by the holy vermilion bird using the main bone of the mythological beast, the heavenly eye swallow. It possesses the power to reverse heaven and earth and is extremely fearful of the vermilion bird. In order to forcibly refine it, a drop of your blood essence that contains the aura of the vermilion bird is required. Enlin's heart jolted upon seeing this information. He raised his head to look at Su Xiaolan and Elder Zhu, as if he was trying to prove something. No wonder the vermilion bird mirror is so afraid of me. It's afraid of the vermilion bird aura within my body. It's the same with those vermilion bird origin treasures. It's not that I'm not welcome. It's that the vermilion bird isn't. Elder Zhu blinked his eyes. That had seemed to make sense. Su Xiaolan was a little hesitant. But I also have the bloodline of the vermilion bird. So why isn't the vermilion bird bracelet afraid of me? Rumble, like a bolt of lightning. It struck the elated Enlin into a daze. Right? Why aren't you afraid of Su Xiaolan? Why are you afraid of me? Why did you abandon me? Enlin's previous excitement vanished into thin air, and his body suddenly felt a little cold. Other people would be treasures that would take the initiative to ask to be kept, but he would always encounter treasures that would run away with a look of disdain. "Eat my blood." He suddenly let loose an enraged roar as he released a drop of golden blood essence onto the vermilion bird mirror. "Screw it. Why should I care so much about whether I'm welcome or not? If I really like it, then I'll just force myself on it." The drop of golden blood made contact with the vermilion bird mirror, and it began to tremor violently. The blood seeped into the mirror, and a white light began to circulate on the surface of the mirror before disappearing. Enlin suddenly felt an inexplicable connection. This was the connection between the vermilion bird mirror and the vermilion bird mirror. He heaved a light sigh as a relieved smile appeared on his face. He picked up the vermilion bird mirror with a smile. "Done. What's the point of running away? It's still mine now, isn't it? I'm your master now. Do you understand?" Elder Zhu, Su Xiaolan, just what kind of psychological trauma did he have to suffer to say something like that to a mirror? The vermilion bird mirror was an extremely intricate round mirror with a crimson frame and an icy blue surface. It was around the size of a human face in the past, but now it had shrunk to the size of a palm after being played with by Enlin. Elder Zhu coughed lightly. "Seeing as you've both found your vermilion bird origin treasures, you may leave the white heavenly pavilion now." Enlin and Su Xiaolan left the white heavenly pavilion with a content expression on their faces. The vermilion bird origin treasures were the best reward that the vermilion bird sect could give them at this point in time. This was a clear indication of just how important they were to the sect. Enlin had also received the position of an honorary elder, which meant that he didn't have any missions, so he was free to do whatever he wanted. However, he was obligated to contribute to the sect whenever something big happened. He brought his badge to the Elder Cabinet to receive his salary for this year, which was 300,000 spirit stones. This was a huge sum of money to most people, but it was only 300 steamers of stuffed buns for him. After receiving his salary, Su Xiaolan took Enlin to explore all of the restricted areas in the Vermilion Bird sect, including some of the elder-level restricted areas. She also explained in detail the effects of cultivating in those restricted areas, and Enlin's heart itched with excitement. He wanted nothing more than to stay at the Vermilion Bird sect and cultivate there. The restricted areas were useless to him, but the restricted areas that could help him refine the power of flames in his body were very useful to him. He thought about it for a moment before deciding to go to the Vermilion Bird sect's Myriad Flame Heavenly Bridge when he was at the Soul Formation final stage. He had heard that there were unique treasures and pills that would be suitable for the cultivator who made it to the end of the bridge. On the way back, Enlin looked at the bracelet on Su Xiaolan's wrist with a curious expression. That bracelet of yours is so beautiful. Elder Zhu didn't give it any introduction. Did you already know about its effects? Su Xiaolan shook her wrist, and the fiery red bracelet glowed brightly under the sunlight. This Vermilion Bird bracelet has extremely powerful protective properties. It was an origin tool that my mother used when she was still alive. After the death of its owner, the Vermilion Bird origin tool will be summoned by the Holy Flame and return to the White Heavenly Tower. Now that I've met it again, I naturally have to keep it by my side. Enlin's expression faltered upon hearing Su Xiaolan's words. No wonder Su Xiaolan had never mentioned her mother. So she had already passed away. He could also detect another hidden meaning in Su Xiaolan's words, and he was just about to say something. At this moment, Su Xiaolan spoke again. Let's not talk about this for now. After all, only those who are powerful enough will have the right to come into contact with the Vermilion Bird sect. Enlin nodded. He knew that Su Xiaolan didn't want him to get involved in that matter. Soon, he returned to his room and pulled out the Vermilion Bird mirror. The Vermilion Bird mirror was an artifact crafted by the holy beast Vermilion Bird, so its abilities were definitely extraordinary. Enlin placed the mirror on the table and willed it to shrink to the size of a human face. The Vermilion Bird mirror could run, tremble, and resist. This was a clear indication that it was a very intelligent mirror. Enlin looked at the mirror with a curious expression. Demon mirror, demon mirror. I heard that you're a very intelligent and knowledgeable mirror, and I can ask you any question I have, right? A snowy white word suddenly appeared on the surface of the mirror. Master, I am the Vermilion Bird mirror, not the demon mirror. As for the rest of your description, it's very accurate. Enlin was elated. No, I'm your master. If I say you're the demon mirror, then you're the demon mirror. Understand? My adorable little demon mirror. 3 words appeared on the surface of the mirror. I don't know. You're such a tsundere. That's all right. I could take my time to teach you. Enlin chuckled. Can you speak? A line of words appeared on the surface of the mirror. I can, but writing is more energy efficient than speaking. Enlin became excited. Tell me, and I'll hear if you're a girl or a bumpkin. A line of words appeared on the surface of the mirror. If I tell you, just because you tell me, then wouldn't that be very embarrassing for me? Enlin felt like his authority had been challenged, and he chuckled lightly. You're not going to tell me? I'll throw you into a cesspool. Motherf asterisk cur. A crisp, tender voice sounded. Enlin wore a satisfied expression. Chapter 464. Enlin was quite relieved to hear that his demonic mirror was speaking in the voice of a young and tender little girl. As expected, only such an adorable voice was to his liking. Mirror, your voice is very pleasant. Can you sing a song for me? Enlin asked with a smile. Vermilion Bird mirror. A light suddenly flashed across the surface of the icy blue mirror. Master, I just conducted an emotional assessment on you and discovered that you're acting a little neurotic as you're still suffering from the negative emotions of abandonment. You want to communicate with me and obtain my approval in order to fill in the emptiness in your heart. The tender and crisp voice sounded again, and Lin was shocked. He didn't think that the Vermilion Bird mirror would have such a function. Then what should I do? Can you fill in the emptiness in my heart? And Lin asked with a sincere expression. I want to change masters, the vermilion bird mirror replied. And Lin, his heart throbbed with pain, as if it had been stabbed again. And Lin silently stowed the vermilion bird mirror away into his storage ring. At this moment, he suddenly thought of the evil-slaying sword. Why was it that all of the artifact spirits that could speak were so arrogant and difficult to tame? As expected, only the silent black brick and frying pan could make their master feel at ease. Immediately afterward, Lin pulled out 5 shiny silver storage rings from his storage ring. These were the storage rings of the 5 holy palace leaders that he had killed. Many things had transpired in the past, so he hadn't been in the mood to sort through these items. He looked at the 5 storage rings with excitement in his heart. After all, these were the storage rings of return to Void Stage mighty figures. Mighty figures like them had to have some good stuff in their storage rings, right? Opening a boss's treasure chest was always a very tempting prospect, and Lin carefully recalled the designs of the 5 storage rings before picking up the storage ring with the insignia of a winter plum blossom on it. This was the storage ring of the Snow Maiden that had been severely wounded. He had a habit of saving the good stuff for last, so he started with the storage ring of the Snow Maiden, who appeared to be the weakest. After refining the storage ring, he was finally able to see the contents of the storage ring. 55 vital stones, 6 spirit tools, a dozen or so spirit pills, and a dozen or so spirit fruits. All gone. And Lin looked up into the sky and sighed with emotion. So poor. However, he didn't give up and began to refine the second storage ring. This was the storage ring of the Holy Palace leader with dark blue hands. An expectant expression appeared on his face as he refined the storage ring and examined its contents. 62 vital stones, 3 high-grade spirit tools, several spirit pills, and a dozen or so isotribute spirit fruits were all gone. And Lin, how could a dignified palace master of the sacred palace be so poor? This doesn't make any sense at all. Even some of the soul formation stage cultivators on the Tai Chu continent would be able to crush him. Is the world I live in too prosperous? Or is the holy glacial lands too barren? And Lin couldn't help but think back to Earth. If there were return to Void Stage mighty figures on Earth, then the Snow Maidens probably wouldn't be as wealthy. He was a little disappointed as he opened the third storage ring. This was the storage ring of the Snow Maiden with the white bead. After refining the storage ring, there were 80 vital stones, several spirit pills, spirit fruits, and many other materials that could only be found in the Snow Realm. Although they were valuable, they weren't particularly valuable. He heaved a faint sigh. The white bead in the Snow Maiden's hand was most likely an immortal tool. It was a pity that it had been destroyed by his mountain-quaking fist. And Lin massaged his brows and began to refine the storage ring of the Snow Maiden with the sword technique. For what he could sense, this Snow Maiden's power level was only inferior to Qing Li's, so she was at least at the return to Void Intermediate Stage or return to Void Final Stage. A smile finally appeared on his face as he refined the Snow Maiden's storage ring. There were 105 vital stones, 2 immortal pills, a dozen or so spirit pills, 1 immortal fruit, a dozen or so spirit fruits, and a bunch of other materials. Most importantly, there was an immortal tool. This was a snowy white longsword, and Lin immediately unleashed his divine inspection technique on the longsword. Heart Lotus Ice Sword, elementary rank immortal tool. This is an ice-type immortal sword forged from a geocentric ice lotus that materializes once every 100,000 years. It is capable of freezing all things in its path, and upon reaching the higher rank, it possesses the spatial power of the Lotus Realm. It is suitable for ice or sword cultivators. And Lin stowed the immortal sword away with a content expression before continuing to appraise the immortal pills and immortal fruits. The 2 immortal pills were both 8th grade immortal pills, which were extremely effective in healing bodily injuries. As for the immortal fruit, it was the Ice Dark Fruit, which was a 6th grade immortal fruit that could enhance one's ice-type abilities. Put them away. Put them all away. In the end, he focused his gaze on the final storage ring, and he swallowed nervously. Qing Li's storage ring. the snow maiden who had almost killed him and given him nightmares. From the fact that High Priestess Mengji was willing to hand the flame-sealing disc over to her, Enlin could tell that she was far more powerful than the average Holy Palace leader. From the looks of it, the items in her storage ring should be quite valuable. Enlin carefully refined the storage ring and took a deep breath before turning his gaze toward the storage ring. And then Enlin was astonished. He looked at the items in the storage ring with a wide grin on his face like a child who weighed over 100 pounds. 200 vital stones. There was one immortal tool, and it was a high-rank immortal tool. There were over 20 spirit tools, one high-rank immortal pill, a bunch of spirit pills and spirit fruits, and a bunch of unknown materials. There were also 3 snowball-like objects that he didn't know what they were made of, but they were emanating extremely powerful energy fluctuations. Enlin unleashed his divine inspection technique in a frenzy. He appraised the immortal tool first. High-rank immortal tool, Heavenly Frost Shard. An immortal tool refined by the 3rd Great Empress of the Holy Glacial Lands using flying frost stars. This immortal tool was imbued with an extremely powerful ice-type power, and it could enhance the power of spatial freezing by 5-fold when used by a being who had mastered the power of space. The information was very simple, but the content was extremely astonishing. Just the fact that this immortal tool was refined by the Great Empress, and the fact that it was refined by the Great Empress was enough to show just how extraordinary this immortal tool was. The fact that it could enhance the power of spatial freezing by 5-fold meant that he would be able to freeze anyone he wanted when he progressed to the Return to Void stage. Enlin stowed the immortal tool away with a joyful expression before appraising the immortal pill. 2nd grade immortal pill. Immortal Traversing 9 Lives pill. This pill was refined using 9 types of immortal fruits with extremely powerful life force for 900 years. The life force essence of the immortal fruit was infinitely enhanced before condensing into a pill. Consumption of this pill can bring one back from the brink of death and greatly enhance one's life force. Enlin fell into a momentary silence as he stared at this pill. He stroked his snowy white hair. Others might think that this hair added an air of elegance and mysteriousness, but he didn't like this hair color. He knew that it was a sign that he had expended too much life force. He had tried shaving his head before consuming a hair growth pill, but his hair was still white. As such, if he wanted to have a full head of black hair, he would have to dye his hair. Enlin sighed as he thought back to Jiang Yanan. Apparently, he had intentionally dyed his hair white for the sake of his image. Enlin's chest tightened at the thought of this. He really wanted to switch places with him. Su Xiaolan often hinted at or asked about Enlin's situation. Enlin could sense Su Xiaolan's guilt and anxiety, so he kept telling Su Xiaolan not to worry. After all, he had money now, so it wouldn't be difficult for him to buy some pills that could restore his lost lifespan. The system might not be able to restore his lifespan, but the loss of his lifespan caused by the divine simulation technique should be able to be restored with high-rank pills. He had initially planned to ask Yi Shi to refine a few pills that could enhance his life force after he returned to the Celestial Court. He didn't expect to obtain one right away. Now, let me see what effects this high-rank immortal pill has. Enlin held a translucent white immortal pill in his hand and swallowed it without hesitation. Chapter 465. Boom! As soon as Enlin swallowed the immortal Traversing 9 Lives pill, the enormous pill energy was completely unleashed by the evergreen technique. 9 different types of energy imbued with extremely powerful life force energy clashed within his body. A green halo appeared above Enlin's head. This was the manifestation of the evergreen technique being fully activated. 5 types of life force energy imbued with the power of the 5 elements began to fuse with his organs, blood, and bones. 2 other types of life force energy nourished his consciousness. One of the remaining 2 types of life force energy fused with his meridians, while the other entered his sea of vital energy. A green light radiated from Enlin's body, and the life force energy rippled through his surroundings. His slightly lethargic aura began to glow with vitality again. His snowy white hair began to slowly turn black after being infused with the extremely powerful life force energy. Like snow and ice melting, his hair returned to its original color. The green light continued to envelop him, and a vast amount of life force energy continued to be released and absorbed. This process lasted for an entire hour. An hour later, Enlin opened his bright eyes. An extremely rich life force energy emanated from his body as he inhaled and exhaled. Who would have thought that there would still be some life force energy left in this pill? Looks like I've reached the limit of what I can absorb. A faint smile appeared on his face as he brought out the vermilion bird mirror from his storage ring. The man in the mirror had a handsome face, bright eyes, and inky black hair. So handsome, and Lin murmured to himself with a satisfied smile on his face. Vermilion bird mirror. It had to be said that a second-grade immortal pill that could enhance one's life force energy was extremely potent. The lifespan that he had expended using the divine simulation technique had been replenished by more than half, and his life force energy was even better than before. However, his body could only sustain this much energy. He would have to think about how to replenish the remaining portion of his lifespan. In any case, the path of cultivation was a long one, so he wasn't in a hurry. The more Enlin looked at himself in the mirror, the more satisfied he became. He felt as if he had become even more handsome. He was no longer an ethereal and mysterious immortal, but a vibrant and radiant young man. He looked at himself in the mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror, tell me, who is the most handsome person in this world?" A tender voice rang out, "Great Angel Ling Jia." "Enlin, can't you say Enlin?" The vermilion bird mirror replied with a straight face, "I don't lie." Enlin sighed. "A mirror like you who doesn't know how to please its owner will not be loved by its owner in this tacky world." Vermilion bird mirror, "I don't want to be loved. I only beg you to let me go." Enlin, what an honest mirror. Why didn't it break? Enlin put away the vermilion bird mirror with a resigned expression before using his divine inspection technique to appraise the items. He first used his divine inspection technique to appraise the 3 snowball-like objects as the extremely violent energy fluctuations emanating from them piqued his curiosity. Snow Explosion Ball, a one-time offensive tool refined by the High Priestess of the Holy Glacial Lands, Meng Ji. When hurled, it can freeze the space within a radius of 5 kilometers. Its power is equivalent to a full force attack from a return to void intermediate stage Snow Maiden. Mid-deity transformation cultivators could use it. Enlin's body shuddered upon seeing this, and his eyes lit up with unprecedented light. Power equivalent to a full force attack from a return to void intermediate stage Snow Maiden. Holy F***CK. This was a super F*** powerful trump card. To Enlin, these 3 snow explosion balls were even more valuable than an immortal tool. This meant that even if he encountered a return to void stage mighty figure, he would be able to defend himself or even escape. These were the perfect life-saving treasures. He stowed the snow explosion balls into his storage ring with an elated expression before starting to tally up the other items. Not only Qing Li's storage ring, but he also tallied up the treasures in the other 4 storage rings and was very satisfied with the final total. There were a total of 502 vital stones. Coupled with the spirit stones in his storage ring, he now had over 13 million spirit stones. He had finally become a cultivation tycoon again. 32 spirit tools meant that he could use any of his sword burial techniques from now on. 2 immortal pills that had extremely strong healing effects on bodily injuries. 2 6th-grade immortal fruits. Ice Dark Fruit, which could enhance one's ice-type abilities. Over 100 spirit pills, over 100 spirit fruits, and a huge pile of ice-type materials. An elementary rank immortal tool, the Heart Lotus Ice Sword, which could freeze all things. It could be upgraded to a high-rank immortal tool, the Heart Lotus Realm. A high-rank immortal tool, the Heavenly Frost Sword, which was imbued with an extremely powerful ice-type immortal tool. When used by a being who had mastered the power of space, it could enhance the power of space by 5-fold. Of course, There was also a second-grade immortal pill, but he ate it. He had reaped a bountiful harvest this time, and Enlin was ecstatic to see this. He pushed open the door and went into the courtyard to get some fresh air. He took a deep breath as he looked at the wisteria trees in the courtyard. At this moment, Su Xiaolan also happened to walk out of the courtyard. She couldn't help but cover her mouth in surprise upon seeing Enlin. Enlin, your hair. She could sense that Enlin's hair was not dyed. Every single strand of his hair was imbued with a vibrant aura. I've swallowed a second-grade immortal pill, and I feel much better now. Enlin smiled as he looked at the beautiful woman in a jade dress. That's great. Su Xiaolan stared intently at Enlin's black hair, and tears shimmered in her eyes. She was very afraid that Enlin's lifespan would be irreversible, and she had been thinking about ways to recover his lifespan for the past few days. Now, it appeared that this kind of lifespan loss could be remedied by immortal pills. This was a great relief to her. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face as he held onto the woman's hand. He walked over to the wisteria tree and took out two pear-like fruits that glowed with blue light. These are? Su Xiaolan blinked curiously. These are called sweet snow fruits, and they're fifth-grade spirit fruits. They have a refreshing taste, and I found them in the Snow Maiden storage rings. I heard that they're really delicious. Enlin had also used his divine inspection technique to appraise them, and he found that they were the only spirit fruits that could be described as having an extremely delicious taste. Su Xiaolan was a little skeptical as she picked up one of the spirit fruits and took a small bite. The crisp texture instantly lingered on the tip of her tongue, and the cool and refreshing taste was not only limited to her mouth, but also spread throughout her entire body. She felt as if her entire body had been cleansed by a sweet spring, and she felt extremely comfortable. It was sweet and refreshing. Delicious. Su Xiaolan's eyes narrowed in bliss, and her eyes were like two crescent moons as she praised Enlin before continuing to eat. Enlin smiled upon hearing this, and he also picked up a sweet snow fruit to eat. A good day and a good mood were the perfect match for a sweet snow fruit. The next day was still a bright and sunny day. Enlin rode on to Bai and returned to the celestial court with his beast pets and Su Xiaolan. Chapter 466. Within the limitless divine palace in the holy city of the holy glacial lands, a woman enshrouded in a blue divine light stood atop the divine wheel, looking down at the snow maidens, as well as a woman in a white robe kneeling on the ground. Shangguani, are you willing to swear upon your Tao to become the disciple of High Priestess Mengji? The clear voice was imbued with supreme authority as it swept toward the woman kneeling on the ground. Aside from that, there was also an extremely primordial will that was constantly befuddling her mind. Shangguan pursed her lips with a determined expression, and she gritted her teeth and didn't say anything. She was extremely resistant to the great Empress voice, but a sense of kinship and attachment that stemmed from her bloodline compelled her to submit to that primordial will. There were 28 holy palace leaders standing silently beside Shangguani. After that battle, 8 of the 36 holy palace leaders had fallen. This was the most devastating blow the holy glacial lands had ever suffered in the past 10,000 years, and it had severely shaken the foundation of the Snow Maidens. Palace leader Mu Qing of the Ice Falcon Holy Palace was looking at the woman before her with anticipation etched on her face. She was the one who had discovered Shangguan in the midst of battle during her escape. She didn't think that Shangguan would possess a natural ice Tao root that possessed the soul aura of the Ice Matriarch. She was the perfect successor to the High Priestess. Mu Qing captured Shangguan alive without any hesitation and brought her to the Great Empress. If there was anything to be happy about after that intense battle, it would most likely be this woman. Mu Qing was very glad that her life displacement technique had failed. Otherwise, she would have definitely followed in the footsteps of the 5 palace leaders and been killed by that unfathomable and powerful being. She was extremely elated that she had managed to escape with her life, and on top of that, she had managed to capture a perfect successor to the High Priestess. If everything went according to plan, there would be an extremely tempting reward for her in a few days. Shangguani, Are you willing to swear upon your Tao to become the disciple of High Priestess Mengji? The great empress spoke again, and the golden divine wheel began to revolve as countless golden symbols flowed into Shangguan Yi's body. This was an extremely primordial essential power that was imbued with will, Tao intent, and the power of protection. Shangguan Yi's body trembled slightly as a hint of golden light appeared in her eyes. The unyielding expression on her face was slowly being replaced by a frosty expression of indifference. I'm willing to swear on my path of Tao to take High Priestess Meng Ji as my master. A cold voice rang out in the Infinity Temple. The wheel began to spin, and everything began to change. Meng Ji stood beside the great empress, and her golden eyes flashed as a faint smile appeared on her exquisitely beautiful face. Baiwa State. The sky was full of twinkling stars. A round star cut through the tranquility of the night, leaving a beautiful golden arc in the night sky. It fell on a boundless plain. Rumble. The earth trembled, and a shock wave of energy swept out for several kilometers. Flames soared into the sky, illuminating the entire world. A beautiful and ethereal woman with long black hair that fell to her knees walked out of the flames with light steps. The flames shone on her white skin, making her look gentle and alluring. She was like the bright moon in the night sky, dazzling. She was none other than the moonlit night monarch, who had transformed into a bright moon. She stepped through the air in her black boots, and she soon arrived at the summit of a tall mountain. Her eyes were as gentle and clear as the moon, and she looked into the distance toward the celestial court. After a few seconds, the moonlit night monarch closed her eyes again as boundless information began to converge in her mind. Disregarding all things and turning into nature. 600 days of observation without being distracted by my will. Now, let me take a good look and see what interesting information I've gained. His normal combat prowess is only at the spirit nurturing stage. His cultivation base is at the spirit nurturing initial stage. He reached the soul formation intermediate stage in 6 days. What kind of speed is this? Is he the reincarnation of some mighty figure? Why would golden void lightning appear in the minor lightning tribulation transcendence? And he can transform? And he can give birth to babies? Why is he able to control the divine lightning? The moonlit night monarch opened her beautiful eyes, and a rare expression of confusion appeared on her face. This is so strange. This doesn't make sense. Also, he kept an eye on me for so long at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, and even said that I was a fake star. Is he implying something? Could it be that Lin has already discovered that I've transformed into a star, so he's using some sort of concealment technique to tease me? That doesn't make sense. He's already detected my existence, but he's not targeting me. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to tolerate someone staring at me day in and day out either. Could it be that he doesn't care about all of this and doesn't see me as a threat? The moonlit night monarch massaged her brows with her slender fingers. She suddenly felt like her head was swelling. No, I have to think about it again. Firstly, from all of his battles, even though his combat prowess is very powerful, it hasn't exceeded the limits of his cultivation base. Secondly, even though he's progressing at a freakish rate, he's still progressing one step at a time. It doesn't make sense for him to skip several stages at once. Thirdly, there's that strange lightning tribulation and lightning manipulation technique. I can interpret it as him being targeted by the heavenly Tao, but does he also have a way to counter the heavenly Tao? Fourthly, and most importantly, during his battle with the Snow Maiden, he unleashed an extremely terrifying power while on the brink of death. The moonlit night monarch's heart was filled with shock as she recalled that scene. She was extremely sure that the Dark Knight Monarch had definitely been killed by that power. That power is extremely terrifying. It's at least at the Tao integration stage, or perhaps even higher. However, it's not like he's flawless. That's a power that he can only use once in a short period of time. This can be seen from how that Snow Maiden almost killed Lin after that. But I'm so envious. To think that there's a woman who's so sincere toward him, and Lin as well, Who would have thought that he would go to such lengths for that woman? Perhaps this is what love is. The moonlit night monarch's eyes shimmered with emotion as she sighed with emotion. No. Why am I thinking about this? The moonlit night monarch's expression faltered, and she shook her head as she began to analyze the situation again. I can still win. I can use that power to trigger a chance for me to defeat Enlin. That power can bring Enlin back to life, but there's a time limit to that power. Once that time limit is up, that'll be the best time for me to strike. However, if I want to force Enlin into a corner, my soul formation stage moon guards won't be able to do anything. Enlin is simply too powerful now, and I'll need a return to void stage mighty figure to beat him to the brink of death. Damn it, how did he progress so quickly? Every return to void stage being is not to be underestimated. A cannon fodder for a return to void stage mighty figure. Where am I supposed to find someone like that? The moonlit night monarch pursed her lips with an enraged expression. The moonlit night monarch took a deep breath as she turned toward the celestial court again. Enlin, how could I have such a troublesome opponent like you? But I won't give up. I'll definitely find a return to void stage cannon fodder. She made up her mind and calmly raised her flawless face. However, the bizarre scene at the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect suddenly flashed through her mind, and she shuddered involuntarily. This star is so special. It's probably not a fake star. The moonlit night monarch gritted her teeth as her voice reverberated through her mind. This must be a coincidence. This must be a coincidence. She muttered to herself a few times before tearing open a spatial rift and disappearing from this world in search of cannon fodder. Chapter 467. Enlin returned to the familiar university and his cozy dorm room. He didn't think that so many things would happen during his trip to the Vermilion Bird Sect with Su Xiaolan. This trip took over a month, and Vice Principal Yu Hua had a rough idea of what had happened, so he didn't say anything about his absenteeism for over a month. However, some of his classmates and friends were extremely worried. First was the news of Enlin's death. Then he was suddenly resurrected. Their hearts were starting to throb. Previously, Enlin had returned to the Vermilion Bird Sect after spending half a day using voice transmission talisman to report that he was safe. Upon learning of Enlin and Su Xiaolan's return, Xianyuan Cheng, Su Qianyun, and the others immediately rushed to Enlin's dorm room to pay their respects. Su Xiaolan took the initiative to pour tea for everyone in an elegant manner. There was a hint of holiness and indifference on her beautiful features. Lu Qianhuan stared at Su Xiaolan this entire time, and her cherry lips slowly gaped open as an expression of astonishment appeared on her face. Sister Su Xiaolan, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken. Why do I feel like your cultivation base is even higher than mine? You've already progressed to the soul formation stage? Don't joke around, Lu Qianhuan. She was only at the spirit nurturing final stage during the free-for-all battle. How could she have progressed from the half-step soul formation stage to the soul formation stage in such a short time? Senior Tang Shimin shook his head with a smile before Su Xiaolan had a chance to reply. That's right. Not everyone is as freakish as classmate Lin. You're probably mistaken, Su Qianyun chimed in her mellow voice. Su Xiaolan nodded. That's right. I'm already at the soul formation stage. PFFF. Tang Shimin choked on his tea. Lu Qianhuan nodded in agreement. I knew it. This aura can't be wrong. Tang Shimin, Su Qianyun, and Xianyuan Cheng couldn't even be bothered to say anything. All of them stared at Su Xiaolan with astonishment etched on their faces, as if they were trying to see through something and prove something. Yes, Xiaolan is already at the soul formation initial stage. Enlin nodded in affirmation, giving the students present a knowing blow, completely shattering their fantasies. I thought Enlin was the only monster, but now there's also Su Xiaolan. They're actually 2 ranks ahead of me. Tang Shimin wiped the tea from the corner of his mouth and looked up at the moon outside the window. It was so round and big, and he felt like he was adorable. Xianyuan Cheng also looked as if he had been dealt a heavy blow. I could accept it if you could progress to the half-step soul formation stage, but you're already at the soul formation stage? That's way too fast. That's right, I only recently progressed to the half-step soul formation stage, but you're already at the soul formation stage, classmate Xiaolan. Could it be that you skipped the half-step soul formation stage and progressed directly to the soul formation stage like classmate Lin? Su Qinyun's bright blue eyes glowed with a strong desire for knowledge as she stared at Su Xiaolan like a curious baby. Xinyuan Cheng felt as if a sword had been stabbed into his heart upon hearing this. Su Qinyun is also at the half-step soul formation stage? Am I the only one at the spirit-nurturing final stage? No. Tang Shimin is also at the spirit-nurturing final stage. Xinyuan Cheng turned toward Tang Shimin to find that Tang Shimin was staring blankly at the moon outside the window. Xinyuan Cheng, no. Xinyuan Cheng's breathing accelerated. Could it be that I, the young sect leader of the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect, have been reduced to the point where I have to compete with a salted fish like Tang Shimin? Xinyuan Cheng was in despair, and Lin replied with a smile. Su Xiaolan made her way up step by step. It's just that her pace was a little too fast. I'll have to start from when I returned to the Vermilion Bird sect with her. Immediately afterward, he began to describe his experiences at the Vermilion Bird sect and the Snow Maidens invasion. The battle between the Snow Maidens and the Vermilion Bird sect had not only shaken the entire Kingdom of the Nine States, but it had also created quite a stir throughout the entire Taichu continent. Xinyuan Cheng and the others only had a rough understanding of the battle and didn't have a chance to learn more about it. Hence, they were all very interested in hearing the narration of the battle. However, when Lin described how Su Xiaolan had sacrificed herself to save him, he only gave a brief summary of the events. For some reason, he didn't really want anyone to learn more about this. Su Xiaolan was also listening silently off to the side with a faint smile on her flawless features, giving her a tranquil and pleasant appearance. Everyone present only heard a brief summary of the events, but they could imagine just how thrilling and painful it had been. Xinyuan Cheng fell silent for a moment before speaking. Perhaps this is what they mean by fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. Only when one is plunged into despair can one undergo a nirvana-like transformation. Congratulations, classmate Su Xiaolan. Everyone else was also in awe as they offered their congratulations to Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan accepted everyone's congratulations with a faint smile on her face, and her gaze toward Lin became even more gentle. To her, that experience was truly unforgettable. The transformation wasn't just a transformation in cultivation base. It was also a transformation in one's mental state and Tao heart. She knew that it wasn't the ordeal that had given her a new lease on life. Instead, it was Lin's persistence that had given her a new lease on life. Su Qinyun looked up at Su Xiaolan, who was flying higher and higher into the sky, and she made up her mind that she had to catch up to her. There is no need to even mention Xinyuan Cheng. He was the one who had received the greatest blow. He had been dealt a double blow by Su Xiaolan and Su Qinyun, as well as senior student Tang Shimin. If he didn't work harder, he was going to become someone like senior student Tang. After the pain and despair, an indescribable fighting spirit was ignited in his heart. Courage would come from humiliation. He had to progress to the half-step soul formation stage within a month. That's right, he had to go into seclusion. Tonight was a rare gathering with his friends, so Lin cooked beef fried rice for them. The dish was very ordinary, but it became extraordinary because of the frying pan. A small portion was given to his beast pets, and the majority was shared with his friends. This beef fried rice made Little Lang cry. Even Tang Shimin felt as if he had been opened to a whole new world. He asked Lin if he would accept any cooking disciples, but of course, Lin turned him down. Thus, everyone spent a warm and peaceful night together. The next day, Lin resumed his mundane school life. He didn't have much time to cultivate at Xiaoxin United University, so he cherished this period of time. He gave Yi Shi 100 steamers of stuffed buns, as well as a bunch of ingredients from the holy glacial lands to express his gratitude. As for the gifts that were too expensive, Yi Shi refused to accept them no matter what. He even said that he would ask for Lin's help if he ever needed it in the future. This made Lin cherish this friend of his even more. He engraved this kindness in his heart and swore that he would repay this kindness when he had the ability in the future. After that, and Lin's daily life consisted of selling stuffed buns, attending classes, and hanging out with Celestial Maiden Lawn whenever he had something to do. Even now, and Lin and Xiaolan were still friends, but not yet Dao partners. There were still 99 years until they became Dao partners. Chapter 468. Time always passed by quickly, and before he knew it, over a month had already passed by. And Lin's stuffed buns had reached a bottleneck, and he would occasionally run out of stuffed buns. After over 40 days, he had only earned a little over 3 million spirit stones. How pitiful! If the other students heard Lin's sigh, they would probably tear down his house. And Lin's current net worth had already exceeded 16 million spirit stones, which was a level of wealth that even normal return to void stage mighty figures couldn't hope to reach. Of course, this was all a small matter. The big matter was that Xiao Hong suddenly broke through some kind of shackle and reached the half-step soul formation stage, thereby attaining a domain that belonged solely to her. This was a domain enshrouded in golden light, and Xiao Hong was the sun within this domain, which could summon many kind and benevolent monks. Tui, she could summon many exquisitely beautiful clones of the ambassadors of the sun. It felt very bad, *SS. In any case, Lin didn't really understand Xiao Hong's consciousness world. All he knew was that her aptitude was probably the best among all of his beast pets. Lin gave the blood god jade in his storage ring to Xiao Hong to consolidate her domain. Xiao Hong photosynthesized on the blood god jade every day, day after day, year after year. It was said that competition and pressure would motivate one to improve, and this was definitely true. Xinyuan Cheng applied for a leave of absence to go back to the 10,000 Spirits Immortal sect to go into seclusion. Just like that, a month passed, and he still didn't come out. He had said that he was going into seclusion for a month, but it looked like he wasn't going to return to the university until he made a breakthrough. In the end, after 49 days of seclusion, a resounding boom erupted, and he finally came out. Xinyuan Cheng walked out of the mystic realm. His clothes were in tatters, his body was charred black, and his handsome face was as black as charcoal. However, his eyes were extremely bright, and they glowed with unprecedented light. And Lin immediately ran over to greet Big Brother Cheng upon learning that he had returned to the university, only to be dragged into a competition by Big Brother Cheng. About 15 minutes later, the two of them returned to the dorm room with their clothes in tatters and charcoal black, and Lin still didn't understand how the humble Big Brother Cheng had attained such a domain. He had to be crazy to have agreed to that kind of competition. Holy F***CK. Big Brother, and you were bombed? Woof. As soon as he returned to the attic, Debai's eyes widened as he looked at Lin's charred face in amazement. Yes, it was bombed. And Lin nodded naturally and did not deny it. After Master was blown up, he still had a great temperament. There was a sense of heroism in his vicissitudes. Howl! The wolf cub surrounded Lin and flattered him at the right time. The white-scale wolf god had already transformed into a small white wolf and was looking up at Lin with an obedient expression. After interacting with Lin for a while, he had already figured out Lin's personality, and he knew that Lin liked small animals. As such, transforming into a little white wolf suited the style of his beast pet team, so he decided to cater to his tastes. Needless to say, Lin fell for this trick. He stroked the wolf cub's white fur with a smile and praised, "Sensible." The little wolf opened its big, watery eyes, stuck out its tongue, and wagged its big tail. It had an obedient look on its face. A sense of crisis immediately welled up in Debai's heart. Not only had his attention been stolen by Su Xiaolan, but now he was going to be stolen by a wolf cub as well. Didn't that mean his share of the stuffed buns that Dabai ignored from now on would most likely be reduced? No, he couldn't let that happen. Dabai's mind raced, and in the end, he turned to Lin with a fawning expression. "Big Brother, I've discovered a good place in the university recently. Go take a bath, and I'll take you there, Woof." "What place?" Lin asked. A sly smile appeared on Dabai's face. "It's a secret. You'll know when you get there. Woof." It had to be said that Dabai's words had piqued Lin's curiosity. He hurriedly took a shower, changed into a set of white clothes, and flew out of the attic on Dubai's back. Dubai brought in Lin to a tall mountain. It was the fifth tallest mountain in Xiaoshan United University, Qiyang Mountain. Qiyang Mountain actually didn't have any special characteristics. It couldn't compare to Full Moon Mountain in terms of spirituality, couldn't compare to Blue Afterglow Peak in terms of scenery, and couldn't compare to Steep Cliff Mountain in terms of precipitousness. Perhaps it had no special characteristics, so students rarely came to this mountain. Why did you bring me here? And Lin was confused. I brought you here to see the scenery. Woof. Dubai chuckled, and Lin looked around. The trees were lush, and he could even see the exquisite and gorgeous celestial buildings in the distance. The scenery was indeed not bad. And Lin, Dubai, do you think that I and Lin have been very idle recently? And Lin looked at the giant white dog in front of him and sighed. You've become arrogant after all. Big brother, and there really is scenery here. Look at that mountain. What mountain is that? Woof. Dubai pointed at the tall mountain a few kilometers away and said loudly. And Lin looked at the tall mountain in the distance. That's Full Moon Mountain. What's wrong? Dubai's claws danced in the air, and a white cloud appeared between the two mountains. As the cloud and mist changed, ripples formed in the center of the cloud and mist. Then, the center of the cloud and mist reflected the scene of Full Moon Mountain like a mirror. Cloud mirror density adjusted, field of view angle adjusted, field of view condensed, mirror image sharpened, mirror image one-way masking. As Dubai waved his claws like a magician, the white cloud mingled with the crowd of other white clouds, appearing extremely ordinary. And Lin's eyes finally widened as he looked at the white cloud, and he drew a sharp intake of breath. A sly smile appeared on Dubai's face again. Big brother, and tell me this time, what do you see? Moon. Moon Lake. And Lin was beginning to stutter, but he was still very excited. He. This is the most famous hot spring in the school. There are female students bathing here every night. I used a one-way concealment technique on this white cloud. From their point of view, it's just a normal white cloud. But from our point of view, it's a high-definition magnified mirror. Dubai spoke with a smug expression. He was sure that Big Brother and would love this scenery. Sure enough, and Lin stared at Dubai with astonishment on his face. If you master mathematics, physics, and chemistry, you won't have to fear anyone under the heavens. Is this the combination of physics and the mighty immortal spell? Amazing. He felt like the way he peeked at Lin in the past was way too low class. This kind of peeking was a true master. Big brother, and do you like this scenery? Woof. Dubai's lips curled up into a smile. I like it. And Lin looked at Dubai with an expression of admiration, expressing his utmost respect to the veteran driver. Let's wait for night to fall now, Woof. Dubai spoke with a smug expression. And Lin suddenly thought of something. Wait, it's too dim at night. Will we still be able to see a clear image from the mirror? Dubai nodded. Yes, we can. We can use the moon essence illumination technique, and it's a pretty good experience. I've been looking at it for 3 days, so there's no need to worry about that. Woof. And Lin nodded before suddenly coming to a realization. Dubai, you've been looking at it for 3 days? Why did you only think of calling me now? And Lin chuckled coldly. Dubai shuddered upon hearing this, and he immediately offered an explanation. I'm just scouting ahead of time. Woof. Isn't enough to scout for a day. What's with 3 days? Also, if Xiaolan also went to take a bath, would you dare to look at it? And Lin's expression had already darkened with killing intent. Big brother, and I'm innocent. Xiaolan clearly hasn't gone to take a bath in the past 3 days. Furthermore, Lu Qianhuan and Su Qinyan haven't gone either. Dubai, swear on my life that I won't do that to someone I'm familiar with. Woof woof. Dubai tried to explain with all his might. Cut the crap, eat my fist. And Lin roared with rage. Thump, 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 bang, bang, bang. Clatter, 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 puff, puff, puff. After a long while, Dubai lay on the ground with his face swollen and bruised. Tears of indignation welled up in his eyes. Big brother, and I, Dubai, am absolutely loyal to you. Whenever there's a good view, the first person I think of to share it with is you. You have to believe me, woof. Dabai expressed with a pitiable expression, and Lin didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the ball of white clouds. Dabai immediately said, if Big Brother doesn't like it, then I'll withdraw the white clouds. Woof. Wait. And Lin stopped him. Dabai blinked his black eyes. Let's wait for nightfall. I want to enjoy the scenery for a while. And Lin clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the full moon mountain with a calm expression. Dabai. Chapter 469. Dabai stared at Lin's enigmatic expression with a perplexed expression. So Big Brother wasn't against this scenery, but did it still want to get beaten up for nothing? Dabai wanted to cry, but he could only stand by and silently accompany Lin until nightfall. Slowly, night began to fall. White mist began to rise from the beautiful moon pond as a rich, vital energy revolved around it, creating an ethereal and captivating scene. Lights appeared around the moon pond, bathing the clear spring water in a layer of faint light. From afar, the moon pond looked like a bright moon that had been left behind in the mountains. Moonlight enhancement technique. Dabai waved his doggy paw through the air, and the white clouds in the sky began to transform. Lin and Dabai both widened their eyes as they stared at the scenes unfolding in the clouds. Amidst the rippling light, they could see that there were already a dozen or so women frolicking in the hot spring. Even though they were obscured by the white mist, they could still vaguely make out their delicate and supple bodies. They could also see the ripples caused by the water splashing against their snow-white bodies, as well as all sorts of enchanting scenes. Amazing. The scenery here was quite good. Big Brother which girl do you think is pretty good? Dabai stuck out his tongue with excitement. With the cloud mirror as the center, there's that girl at 2 o'clock. She's really good. Her ripples are always rippling, and I can tell that she's very bouncy. And Lin appraised with a smile. Dabai nodded emphatically. She's also very big. Woof. And at 8 o'clock, there's that girl with long black hair. Her long hair clung tightly to her snow-white body, flowing down her lithe and graceful figure. That's also a scenic spot. And Lin couldn't help but praise. Ah, she's standing up. Woof. Dabai let loose a cry of surprise. The girl's tall and voluptuous body was faintly discernible within the white mist, and the water droplets hanging off her snow-white skin were like beautiful pearls that glowed with an alluring luster. Dabai and Lin widened their eyes, and their nostrils flared slightly. Their faces were filled with excitement. Ah! She walked into the area with dense white mist, and Lin spoke with a disappointed expression. Dabai also had a helpless expression. It couldn't interfere with the white mist of the hot spring, because if it did, the fluctuation of the vitality would be discovered by the campus law enforcement team, or the girls soaking in the hot spring. Big Brother, and look, 2 more women are walking in, and they're clearly of the highest quality. Woof. Dabai exclaimed excitedly. And Lin looked over and saw a woman in a blue dress and a woman in a green dress walking in side by side. They had graceful figures and elegant temperaments. Even though their faces were shrouded in white mist and couldn't be seen clearly, one could still guess that they were 2 super beauties. Then, when he took a closer look, the corner of his mouth twitched. Isn't that the jade barley ink garment? And that blue dress, isn't that the one that Su Qinyan always wears? Big Brother, these 2 celestial maidens are definitely amazing. Once they take off their clothes and walk into the area with light mist, we'll be able to admire them. Dabai wagged his tail with excitement. Amazing? And Lin looked at Dabai with a cold smile. Dabai's body suddenly trembled as a terrifying killing intent enveloped its entire body, causing its fur to stand on end. It raised its head and looked up at Lin with shock and horror in its eyes. Big Brother, what are you doing? Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 puff, 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 thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 puff, puff, puff. After a torrential barrage of attacks, Dabai lay on the ground with his face swollen and bruised again as tears streamed down his face. Big Brother, what did I do wrong? Dabai couldn't even form a coherent sentence after being pummeled. Open your dog eyes and see who those two people are." And Lin pointed at the cloud mirror with rage in his eyes. Dubai opened his eyes and looked at the two women to find that they were just about to take off their clothes. But before he had a chance to see who they were, a torrential barrage of punches flew toward him again. Thump, 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 bang, bang, bang. Clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dubai lay on the ground, barely breathing, and one of his eyes had been beaten to the point where he couldn't even open his eyes. Su Xiaolan and Su Qinyan have already begun to take off their clothes, and you still dare to look? And Lin chuckled coldly. Dubai, didn't you tell me to open my dog eyes and see clearly? What should I do? Meanwhile, within the moon pond, Su Xiaolan and Su Qinyan held hands as they made their way to the edge of the hot spring. There was an area here that was isolated from the steam and mist, so they could change into their towels. Su Xiaolan was just about to change when she discovered a faint ripple in the clouds in the distance. She turned her gaze toward the clouds in the distance. Classmate Xiaolan, what's wrong? Su Qinyan blinked her beautiful blue eyes curiously. Nothing. Wait for me for a moment. Don't change your clothes. I have something to take care of. A frosty expression appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she silently made her way toward the backyard of the moon pond. What a brilliant technique. Her opponent was at least of the spirit-nurturing stage, and she was extremely well-versed in the Tao of clouds and mist. If it weren't for the fact that Su Xiaolan was of the soul formation stage and possessed the true dragon bloodline, which allowed her to detect the changes in the wind, clouds, and lightning, she probably wouldn't have been able to detect the ripples in the clouds and mist. She chuckled coldly. You dare to peep on girls bathing? Die. Cloud ripple analysis, energy angle analysis, optical angle calculation. Su Xiaolan suddenly rose into the air, and a pair of white flame wings spread open as a sonic boom cloud appeared behind her. Then, she charged toward the Crimson Sun Mountain at a terrifying speed. On the Crimson Sun Mountain, Lin and Dubai saw Su Xiaolan rise into the air and tear through the air toward them. Holy F***CK, run, big brother in! Dubai yelled and immediately rose into the air. And Lin stared blankly at the woman in a jade dress charging toward him. He was so scared that his legs had turned to jelly, and he couldn't run anymore. He could clearly sense that Su Xiaolan had already discovered him. Su Xiaolan's expression had already changed from one of astonishment to one of rage. If Lin chose to run now, then even if he could King escape, what would he do in the future? Kneeling on a washboard for a year? No, even kneeling on a durian for a year wouldn't be enough to redeem him. He might as well obediently admit his mistake. If he did so with a better attitude, perhaps Su Xiaolan would let him off the hook. That was it. Su Xiaolan's white flame wings swept through the night sky in a beautiful arc, sweeping past Lin's head and sweeping up a gust of scorching wind. She caught up to Dubai in just 2 seconds, and her slender leg swept through the air like a whirlwind, sending the fleeing Dubai flying back into the Crimson Sun Mountain. Boom! Dubai's white body was embedded into the ground beside Lin, and there was a look of despair on his face. Why do you have to be beaten up by Su Xiaolan after being beaten up by Lin? And Lin looked at Dubai with a sympathetic expression. Trying to escape from Su Xiaolan? How could he be so naive? Su Xiaolan had the bloodline of the vermilion bird, and even Lin might not be able to match her speed when she spread open her vermilion bird flaming wings, let alone Dubai, who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage yet. A woman in a jade dress descended from the sky with a pair of white flame wings flapping around her. Under the white moonlight, she slightly raised her chin, and her bearing was as holy and arrogant as the goddess of the ninth heaven. Her eyes contained a dangerous cold light. Hee, peeping at girls bathing? Who gave you the guts to do that? Dubai. And Lin shuddered as he pointed at Dubai. He suddenly told me that there was a scenic view on the Crimson Sun Mountain, so I followed him here like an idiot. After that, I found out that he had the audacity to peek at girls bathing, so I beat him up on the spot. Just look at the injuries on his body, and you'll know that I'm not lying. And Lin spoke with sincerity and guilt on his face. Dubai, who was half paralyzed, was embedded in the ground. Chapter 470. Dabai's heart was filled with despair, and Lin's flawless excuse had completely broken his heart. Why? Why did I, Dabai, have to be slandered after being beaten by the couple? Was there still any justice? Was there still any law? A thought suddenly flashed through Dabai's mind. Celestial Maiden Xiaolan, I'm innocent. This was all Big Brother An's idea. He's a mastermind, and I'm just an accomplice. Dabai wailed before continuing. Big Brother and was the one who came up with this idea. When I saw your figure in the cloud mist mirror, I tried my best to stop Big Brother from peeping, but he beat me up in a fit of rage. Don't you know what kind of person Big Brother is? You have to believe me. Woof. Dabai glared at Lin as he spoke. Come on, let's hurt each other. Su Xiaolan, and Lin's legs gave out from under him again, and he immediately transmitted his voice to Lin. Dabai, shut up. It's better for one person to be beaten than for two people to be beaten. Dabai chuckled coldly. It's better for everyone to suffer than for one person to suffer alone. And Lin, he turned to Su Xiaolan with a sincere expression. Su Xiaolan, don't you know what kind of person I am? Sigh. Su Xiaolan heaved a forlorn sigh. Thump, 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 bang, bang, bang. Clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dabai was completely unmoved by this domestic violence scene. In fact, he felt like laughing a little. And Lin lay on the ground with a swollen face. He felt like Su Xiaolan's punches had become even more ferocious ever since she reached the soul formation stage, and his body was starting to feel a little overwhelmed. It was said that beating was love and scolding was pain. Su Xiaolan's love for him was growing deeper and deeper. Dabai was just about to say something sarcastic when a figure suddenly flashed toward him, followed by a torrential rain of fists. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, clatter, clatter. Puff, puff, puff. Dabai lay in the pit like a dead dog. His eyes were hazy with tears, and he couldn't say a word. He counted. This was the fourth time he had been beaten tonight. Lin had beaten him twice, and Su Xiaolan had beaten him twice. It was so symmetrical and harmonious. Sure enough, the price of looking at the scenery was so heavy that he couldn't breathe. Su Xiaolan patted her slightly red hands and said in a crisp voice, I know best what kind of people you two are, so your words can't be trusted. Let's just beat each of you once, it's fair. And Lin raised both hands in approval. Fairy Xiaolan is wise. Dabai, if you dare to peep on me again, I won't be using my fists. I'll be using my dragon sparrow sword. I'm going to castrate both of you. Su Xiaolan threatened in a frosty voice. A dragon sparrow sword suddenly appeared, with blue lightning flashing on one side and crimson divine flames surging into the sky on the other. And Lin and Dabai both felt a chill run down their spines, and they nodded repeatedly. Fairy Xiaolan, I swear there won't be a next time. And Lin promised. I also swear, Dabai said in a feeble voice. Su Xiaolan made a seal with her slender fingers, and the dragon sparrow sword suddenly expanded to over 10 meters in length and 2 meters in width. Get up here, Su Xiaolan commanded. Where to? And Lin was quite uneasy. I'll take you to the detention room. You'll have to plead guilty if you break the law. Su Xiaolan replied. And Lin, Dabai, well, Fairy Xiaolan, we're already so familiar with each other. Can you let me off the hook this time? I still want to save face. And Lin pleaded with a fawning expression. You still have face? I'm already being very merciful by not cutting you with my sword. Get up here. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed as she scolded in a loud voice. And Lin could only dejectedly climb onto the dragon sparrow sword in the face of Su Xiaolan's tyranny. Su Xiaolan's expression darkened upon seeing that Dabai was still lying motionless in the crater. Dabai, what do you mean by this? Dabai replied with a grief-stricken expression. I'm severely injured and can't move. Help me. Woof. Thump, thump, thump. Slap, slap, slap. Clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, puff, puff. His entire body felt like it was falling apart, and he had no energy left to stand up. And Lin, why did you have to be so heavy-handed? Su Xiaolan was a little annoyed. And Lin, Dabai, fine, you have big breasts, so you're right. Thus, Dabai was lifted onto the dragon sparrow sword by Su Xiaolan, and they flew into the air toward the detention room. Within the detention room, the captain of the enforcement team, Yang Exen, was on duty. His goddess, Qin Wan, had kindly gifted him a chicken drumstick, which made him feel extremely elated. At this moment, the ringing of swords sounded in the air, followed by an extremely vast and profound aura. He had only sensed this aura when he was facing his teacher. He didn't hesitate any longer and immediately walked out of the detention room. He was greeted by a scene that made his lips twitch. An exquisitely beautiful woman in a jade dress was escorting a man and a dog with swollen noses and noses. Furthermore, the man and the dog looked extremely familiar. F***CK. Wasn't that in Lin and Dubai? And that woman was far too familiar to Yang Xian. She was the university's second soul formation stage cultivator, and she was also a supremely talented cultivator. Why was she escorting a man and a dog here? Sister Su Xiaolan, what are you? Yang Xian was a little dumbstruck. Oh, I'm escorting them here to turn themselves in. I guess it counts as turning themselves in. I'll give them some face, Su Xiaolan replied. Turn themselves in? What did Senior and Lin and Dubai do? Yang Xian was astonished. And Lin was the #1 legend of the university, and it would be a disaster if he were to be escorted into the detention room. One had to realize that Lin and Hong Do had been sent into the detention room for fighting, and he was responsible for arresting them. Goddess Sheen almost had a falling out with him, and in the end, those two B***stars even blew up the detention room. Hence, he couldn't help but shudder upon hearing that Lin was going to be sent into the detention room again. Xiaolan, give them some face, and Lin said. Su Xiaolan chuckled. And Lin and Dubai peeped on a female student soaking in the hot spring, so punished them accordingly. And Lin, Yang Xian's lips twitched. What the hell was going on? He had heard rumors about the relationship between Su Xiaolan and Lin. There were rumors that the two of them were very likely to become Dao partners. Then, the current situation was like a husband visiting a prostitute, getting caught by his wife, and then being sent to the police station. Under normal circumstances, wouldn't the wife just beat the husband up? Not only did she beat the husband up, but she was also sent to the police station. They were truly the model Dao partners of the Celestial Court. Sure enough, the television dramas of the mortal world were all lies. Yang Xian didn't know what to say. He forced a smile onto his face. Sister Su Xiaolan really is a good student who abides by the law. He refused to detain Lin from the bottom of his heart. However, she had already delivered herself to his doorstep, so he couldn't just reject her, right? Of course, if we don't curb this kind of behavior, there will be countless other perverts in the future. We must punish these people severely. Su Xiaolan spoke in a righteous manner. And Lin, Dubai, Yang Exen didn't know what to say. Were they really that close? Why they look like enemies? Ahem, how about this? If you turn yourself in, your punishment will be reduced. According to the school rules, you should be detained for 7 days. Now, I'll detain you for 5 days. Yang Xian flashed the sign. And Lin and Dubai both heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if their punishment could be reduced. But I heard that Dubai is a repeat offender, right? He and Zhao Huayin also peeped on him once during his first year. Su Xiaolan suddenly spoke. Oh, right? Yang Xian's eyes lit up. Dubai is a repeat offender, so his punishment will be doubled. Dubai, you'll be locked up for 10 days. Yang Xian spoke again. Dubai's body shuddered, and his mouth gaped open. There was a blank and lifeless expression on his face. Su Xiaolan nodded with satisfaction. I've wasted a lot of time. I'm going back to soak in the hot spring. I hope you have a good time in there. She waved goodbye to the dejected duo like they were old friends before flying away on her sword. What a woman who comes and goes like the wind. She leaves after she's done, hiding her identity and reputation. Yang Xian sighed with emotion as he looked at the green-robed figure. He then called for the other enforcers to escort Lin and Dubai into the detention cell. Thus, Lin and Dubai went back in. Chapter 471. Moon Pond. Su Xiaolan flew back on her sword to find Su Qianyun still waiting for her. Classmate Xiaolan, what did you do after leaving for so long? Su Qianyun asked curiously. Su Xiaolan didn't expect Su Qianyun to really be waiting for her, so she was a little embarrassed. She was just about to tell her about Enlin, but she decided to save him some face, so she made up a random excuse. Su Qianyun didn't really care about that, so she nodded innocently before dragging Su Xiaolan to the hot spring. At the same time, in the school's detention room, Dubai, this place sure is nostalgic. Thinking back, this was where we first met, right? And Lin sighed with emotion. That's right. You were just a pure and kind boy who didn't know how to play tricks. You were so much more adorable than your current sinister self, woof. Dubai looked at Enlin with a resentful expression. Enlin knew that his betrayal of his teammate had dealt a heavy blow to Dubai, so he consoled. Dubai, we're comrades who share blessings and sorrows now. Let's just forget about what happened in the past. Share blessings? The Dubai who was detained for 10 days doesn't want to talk to the B*TCH who was detained for 5 days. Woof. Dubai chuckled coldly. Enlin, he looked at the injuries on Dubai's body and enthusiastically pulled out a spirit pill from his storage ring with a smile. Dubai, you're quite heavily injured. Eat a spirit pill. Dubai slapped Enlin's spirit pill away. You win. I have my own spirit pill. I don't need to eat yours. With that said, he took out a healing spirit pill from his storage ring and swallowed it by himself. The corners of Enlin's mouth twitched. Wasn't the pill Dubai was swallowed by him in the past? Why did he sound so righteous? He looked at the pitch-black walls around him and shook his head with a sigh. He then took out the frying pan. After being detained for 5 days, it seemed that he would have to put aside the matter of selling steamed buns for a while. I haven't used the flavor buff from the frying pan yet, so I'll cook a dish in my cell to reward myself. Dubai's eyes lit up at the sight of the frying pan. What should I cook? Enlin muttered to himself. Make beef fried rice. Use the yak meat from Bull Demon King's ranch to make fried rice. Woof. Dubai pounced over and interrupted excitedly. Enlin, you're not angry anymore? You can be angry after this meal, woof. Dubai stuck out his tongue. Enlin chuckled coldly. Dubai looked at the frying pan in Enlin's hand and gritted his teeth. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not angry anymore. Big brother, and do you think we have a grudge against each other? Woof. Dubai had taken Enlin to enjoy the scenery in order to ensure that Dubai wouldn't ignore his share of steamed buns. Furthermore, he also wanted to compete with Enlin for Dubai's favor, so there was no point in antagonizing Enlin. Besides, he was already used to Enlin's despicable ways. He's just being despicable for the sake of the frying pan. I'll forgive him. Enlin smiled triumphantly. Conquering a beast pet was easy. All he had to do was conquer his stomach. Thus, Enlin pulled out some ingredients from his storage ring and began to cook beef fried rice in his cell. Yang Xin was working the night shift in the office of the campus detention center. Ever since Enlin had been detained, he had been feeling uneasy. He had a nagging feeling that Enlin was going to cause trouble. Sigh, I hope he can behave himself and not cause any trouble. Yang Xin muttered to himself before picking up the drumstick on the table with a blissful smile on his face. This was a drumstick that Goddess Qin wanted specially gifted to him. What was the saying again? The gift was light, but the sentiment was heavy. Qin hadn't gifted him a drumstick, but a sentiment. He caressed the glossy drumstick and took a bite as a blissful expression appeared on his face. However, right at this moment, an indescribable aroma suddenly wafted toward him. It smells so good. Yang Xion's eyes widened as he swallowed uncontrollably as he inhaled the extremely alluring aroma. The other 2 enforcers on duty also looked around with astonishment on their faces. My God, this aroma is giving me goosebumps. Where did it come from? I'm so hungry. I can sense the flow of the aroma. It seems to be coming from the detention center. Could it be? The 2 enforcers looked at each other as they involuntarily gulped. Young Chef got Enlin. Yang Xin exclaimed as he inhaled deeply, as expected of his reputation. But I won't give in. Yang Xin looked at the drumstick in his hand and bit down hard on it. However, his drumstick suddenly became bland and tasteless due to the powerful contrast in flavor. This tastes so disgusting, Yang Xin muttered with a bitter expression as he chewed on the drumstick. The crisp footsteps outside the door abruptly stopped. Yang Xian looked out the door, and his pupils suddenly contracted as his mouth gaped open. Qinwen, let me explain. A woman in blue stood outside the door with a bag of spirit fruits in her hand. A hint of grief appeared on her face before it transformed into a cold sneer. Ha! That's right. Such a disgusting drumstick is a stain on your mouth. I shouldn't have brought it to you. The woman in blue turned around and quickly left as she spoke. Wait, Qinwen, this is all a misunderstanding. Yang Xian yelled as he ran out the door and chased after her. Hey, Captain, we're on duty right now, the two enforcers yelled. However, Yang Xian ran away without even turning back. He didn't care about being on duty anymore. He was about to lose his future Dao partner. What the hell was he supposed to be doing? And Lin again. Can't he just let me go? Yang Xian chased after Qin, as he cursed the man who was cooking in the detention center 10,000 times over in his mind. He was already so scary when he was cooking. Was he going to let people live? The remaining two enforcers looked at each other before continuing to stand guard out of professional ethics. The aroma of the beef-fried rice wafted through the air like a seductive slut, constantly teasing their noses. Words like so delicious and so delicious sounded from within the detention center. The two enforcers felt an irrepressible desire. That hunger, that thirst was not something a normal person could endure. This was King poisoning in the middle of the night, and it was lethal poison. Thus, the two enforcers passed this torturous period in a state of ecstasy. Yang Xian had already returned to his desk and was silently gnawing on the cold chicken drumstick. His eyes were filled with tears, but he was trying his best not to let them fall. The two enforcers were already a little dazed by the aroma, but they finally came to their senses after seeing Yang Xian's expression. They heaved a sigh of relief. Ha! It's okay. The captain looks even worse off than us. Chapter 472. 5 days later, Lin bade farewell to Dabai with an affectionate expression. Dabai, I'll be waiting for you outside. All of the members of the university enforcement team saw Lin off with tears streaming down their faces. They had had enough of being tortured by that terrifying aroma every single day, and they could only hope that Lin would abide by the law and never come back here again. Lin walked out of the detention cell and was a little disappointed to find that Su Xiaolan wasn't there to pick him up. An adorable puppy, too. It was Little Wolf. The snowy white Little Wolf stuck out its tongue, widened its eyes, and wagged its tail as it waited for Lin outside with an adorable expression. Master, welcome back. Even though the Great Revolution has yet to succeed, Little Wolf is still willing to follow in your footsteps. The white-scaled wolf god spoke with a fawning expression. Lin, had this wolf become proficient in flattery recently? Lin returned to his dorm room to find an unexpected guest waiting for him there. Hey, classmate Lin, I knew I would only be able to see you today. A handsome man with a transcendent aura was waving at Lin with a smile on his face. Master Ming Yuan. Lin couldn't help but let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing the man before him. You've broken through to the Return of Void stage? Haha, it's all thanks to classmate Lin that I was able to progress to the Return of Void stage. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan smiled, but there wasn't much excitement on his face. Instead, there was a calm and collected expression on his face. I wouldn't dare to take credit for that. It's all thanks to your exceptional aptitude. Lin waved his hand dismissively. He then sat down across from Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan and brought out his signature dish for foreign guests, buns ignored by dogs. No, this is all thanks to you. On a deeper level, this is all fate. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan casually ate a bun, and his body shuddered as an expression of shock appeared on his face. This bun is fated to be with me, and Lin, if fate allows it, then eat more. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan didn't hold back and quickly swept the steamer full of buns on the table before getting down to business. Before I broke through, I said that I would give you a big gift after I successfully broke through. I, Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan, am not someone who goes back on his word, so please accept this bead. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan handed over a white bead. This is... Lin could not sense any obvious energy fluctuations from a bead. Clearly, it was not a spiritual or immortal artifact. It should be some kind of special item. This is an item that combines my Tao of divination, the Pearl of Fate. As long as you inject your vital energy into this bead, it will be able to synthesize the information of heaven and earth and determine the user's fate for the next 10 days, Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan explained. Lin's interest was instantly piqued upon hearing this. This was some King good stuff? This pearl can only be used once a day, and it consumes a lot of vital energy. You must be careful when using it. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan injected vital energy into the Ming Yuan pearl. Immediately afterward, a yellow light appeared on the surface of the Ming Yuan pearl. The color of the Ming Yuan pearl represents good or bad luck. Yellow represents neither good nor bad luck. Green represents good luck, and red represents bad luck. You can give it a try. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan handed the bead to Lin as he spoke. Lin accepted the bead with a smile. Red, yellow, and green? It feels like the traffic lights on the road. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan laughed heartily. You don't say. The color is indeed inspired by the traffic lights of the mortal world. Lin attempted to inject vital energy into the Ming Yuan pearl, and an extremely powerful suction force suddenly erupted from the bead, sucking away his energy. At the same time, a ripple spread outward before merging into heaven and earth. The Ming Yuan pearl lit up. It was purple. Weren't there only 3 colors? Red, yellow, and green? Lin blinked in confusion. Teacher, what's the meaning of this purple? Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan took a deep breath, and a sympathetic expression suddenly appeared on his face as he looked at Lin. This is called turning purple from red. And Lin, I'm screwed. And Lin felt a chill run down his spine. It's all right, student Lin. Fate is not set in stone. You can change your future. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan spoke with a serious expression. How do I change it? Lin asked in an urgent voice. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan paused momentarily before replying. This is a little complicated, but let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to die tomorrow. Can you give me another example? Lin's lips twitched. All right, let's say you're going to die the day after tomorrow. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan nodded. Lin, let's say you're going to die because a gargantuan meteor crashed into Xiaoxian United University, pulverizing the entire floating continent and killing all of the living beings on it. Regardless of whether you work hard to cultivate, skip classes, or hide at home, or hide in a place that you think is safe in the school, you will still face death. This is the inertial force of the river of fate. When death becomes the mainstream of your fate, then no matter what you do, the tributaries will always draw you back to the destination of death. If you want to break free from this mainstream force of fate, you'll have to make an extremely massive change, which will require an extremely large amount of power. Let's say you're an extremely conservative person. You're supposed to go to class today, but you suddenly decide to go to the EC to play. This is completely out of character for someone like you and Lin. Thus, this will drastically alter the trajectory of your fate, thereby allowing you to avoid being struck by the meteor. Or maybe you're originally at the soul formation stage, but your power suddenly skyrocketed to the Tao integration stage, thereby allowing you to ignore the impact of the meteor. The more unconventional a change is, the more it can alter the future that you're going to face. And Lin understood what Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan was trying to say. For someone with a fate as red as his, he would probably have to make an extremely massive change in order to avoid this calamity. Go. Classmate Lin, you're the most unpredictable person I've ever met. I'm sure you'll be able to turn this calamity into a blessing. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan suddenly grabbed onto Lin's hand and offered words of encouragement. Lin nodded. Don't worry, teacher. I'll go to the Moon Palace and lie low for now. What do you want to do? Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan stared at Lin with shock on his face. Chong. He is invincible in the Moon Palace. I'll go there and hide for 10 days. What calamity could possibly befall me? And Lin chuckled coldly. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan fell silent. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with Lin's words, but something felt off. If that's the case, then take care, classmate Lin. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan stood up and bade farewell. And Lin stood up and accompanied Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan out the door before returning to his room. He thought about it for a moment before pulling out his vermilion bird mirror. Mirror, mirror, can you tell me my fortune? Master, I'm just an erudite mirror. I'm not a fortune teller. The vermilion bird mirror replied in an extremely disdainful voice. Sigh, I heard that, Chong. You will become more powerful in the Moon Palace. Can you tell me how powerful Chong is in the Moon Palace? And Lin continued. She's on the moon, and with the power of the true moon, she won't have to fear Tao integration stage mighty figures, the vermilion bird mirror replied. And Lin nodded with a pleased expression. Sigh, I haven't seen Big Sister Chong and Little Sister You Two for a long time. It's about time I pay them a visit. Vermilion Bird Mirror. Chapter 473. And Lin felt like this matter couldn't be delayed any longer, so he immediately set off for the Moon Palace. Once he arrived at the Moon Palace, he didn't care about any random calamities. As long as he could cling onto Big Sister Chong's thighs, everything would be fine. And Lin walked out of the dorm and was just about to leap onto his brick. A ripple suddenly erupted between heaven and earth, and a pillar of light descended from the sky, striking his body. This was a pillar of light imbued with the power of space. A chill ran down in Lin's spine. He suddenly thought back to the calamity that was so red it was almost purple. F***CK? Was this an enemy attack, aimed at him? Who dared to attack in the territory of the Celestial Court? Did they have to be so violent and direct? Why did things happen so quickly? Did they not even give him time to react? I'm going to report them for cheating. Just as Lin was cursing in his heart, he was suddenly struck by a rush of dizziness. After a moment, he had arrived at an extremely massive white palace. And Lin's body tensed up, and he was extremely focused. He even gripped his evil slaying sword in his hand. However, he faltered in the next second. There were several dozen people in the palace, and all of them were looking around with confusion on their faces. Furthermore, all of their auras were extremely powerful. And Lin, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. And Lin turned around to discover a man in extravagant armor holding a dragon-patterned spear looking at him with a surprised expression. Senior Wang, why are you here? And Lin exclaimed in surprise. This man was none other than the former number 1 on the Immortal Rankings board, Wang Xuanzhan. Wang Xuanzhan made his way toward Lin with his spear still stained with blue blood. I don't know either. I was still fighting enemies in the holy glacial lands. During the battle, the teleportation badge suddenly lit up, and I was teleported here. Why are you here as well? I was blasted down by a pillar of light from the sky, and then here I am. King thought it was an enemy attack and that I was going to fall into a monster's lair. Thankfully, the situation doesn't seem to be that bad. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Xuanzhan chuckled. They're probably all summoned here by the power of the Celestial Court. There are many familiar faces here, and they're all renowned, powerful beings of the Celestial Court. Look at that blue-haired man. His name is Chun Daoyan, and he's 3 years older than me. He used to be number 1 on the Immortal Rankings board, and he should be at the late soul formation stage now. As for that short girl, her name is Lu Chu Chu. She's a senior 10 years older than me, and she's currently at the soul formation pinnacle stage. I've seen her portrait in the university's Hall of Fame. As for the immortals who reside in the Celestial Court, I'm sure I don't need to introduce them. And Lin nodded seriously. He was now carefully observing the dozens of people in the palace, and the more he looked, the more frightened he became. Including him, there were 60 soul formation stage cultivators, and almost all of them were at least at the soul formation final stage. There were also 5 people whose cultivation bases he was unable to ascertain, but they were very easy to recognize. Anyone who studied in the Celestial Court would recognize them. There was the Day Patrol God, who wore a red robe and had eyes as bright as the sun. He held a day patrol immortal badge in his hand. There was the night patrol god, who wore a black robe and was enshrouded in black mist with long chains trailing behind him. There was the giant spirit god, who was at least 3 meters tall and wielded a massive crimson axe. There was the handsome Lu Dongbin, who had a sword strapped to his back and was one of the 8 immortals of the Celestial Court Sword Palace. There was the stunningly beautiful celestial maiden He, who stood atop the projection of a lotus flower and held a blossoming lotus in her slender hand. And Lin looked at the 5 people nearby with curiosity. They were all extremely renowned immortals of the Celestial Court, and he wondered how their stories differed from the legends on Earth. Lu Dongbin seemed to have sensed Lin's gaze, and he suddenly turned to look at Lin with a polite smile. Lin's heart thumped as he thought to himself, so handsome. Right at this moment, a purple-robed man with a cold expression suddenly appeared on the white jade throne in the White Palace. Everyone in the palace fell silent as soon as he appeared. Everyone turned to look at the man on the throne, as if he were the center of the entire heaven and earth. And Lin was also very familiar with this face. This was Emperor Ziwei of the Celestial Court. Emperor Ziwei looked at the several dozen powerful beings present, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he spoke in a voice that echoed throughout heaven and earth. Welcome, 65 elites of the Heavenly Court. I've suddenly teleported all of you here because I have an urgent matter that requires your assistance. He paused for a moment before continuing. The ancient Tai Chu realm, which only appears once every 500 years, will be opening a passageway 10 years ahead of schedule. The passageway will open tomorrow. Everyone erupted into an uproar upon hearing this. Of course, there were also people who were just as dumbstruck as Lin was. Emperor Ziwei still provided a thoughtful explanation. The ancient Tai Chu realm is a very ancient world. Currently, the consensus is that it is the predecessor of the Tai Chu continent. Currently, that world is still crumbling, and its surface area has already shrunk to less than 1% of the size of the Tai Chu continent. During the process of the world's collapse, something called realm essence crystals will appear, and these things are extremely important to the construction of the world. Emperor Ziwei waved a hand as he spoke, and 5 crystal-like objects of different colors appeared before everyone. When these crystals appeared, a terrifying ripple began to proliferate outward, and heaven and earth seemed to have become a little viscous, as if they had encountered some kind of restrictive power. Realm essence crystals are extremely important materials for the construction of a world, and they can only appear in a collapsing world. These things might not be of much use to you, but they are extremely useful to the Celestial Court. We will purchase these realm essence crystals at a high price using spirit stones. 1 white realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 10,000 spirit stones. 1 green realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 30,000 spirit stones. 1 blue realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 100,000 spirit stones. 1 red realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 200,000 spirit stones. And 1 golden realm essence crystal can be exchanged for 1 million spirit stones. At this point, many people were already staring at the realm essence crystals with a scorching light in their eyes. Even a tycoon like Lin couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva in envy. A single golden realm essence crystal was almost equivalent to the wealth of a return to Void Stage mighty figure. How could they not be tempted by this kind of price? Due to the restrictions imposed by the laws of the collapsing world, all beings who have come into contact with the power of the Tao integration stage will be rejected and devoured. As such, even Return to Void Final Stage celestial immortals are unable to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. We can only send cultivators of the Return to Void Intermediate Stage and below to enter. The ancient Tai Chu realm is further divided into 2 realms. The Void Star section allows Return to Void Stage cultivators to enter, while the Ancient Divine section allows Soul Formation Stage cultivators to enter. Currently, there are only 16 ancient powers on the continent that have passageways into the ancient Tai Chu realm. Our Celestial Court also has a passageway that allows 5 Return to Void Stage cultivators and 30 Soul Formation Stage cultivators to enter. The ancient Tai Chu realm contains countless ancient inheritances and mystic treasures. At the same time, it is also an extremely perilous place. There are abnormal spaces, mutant beasts, and foreign tribes that are extremely violent. In fact, the Celestial Court has even been wiped out in the past. All of you are the most elite forces of the Celestial Court, so I will give all of you an hour to consider whether you want to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm or not. In the end, I will filter out the final list of names based on your applications. Emperor Zhuwei closed his eyes and waited silently as his voice fell. And Lin finally understood what Emperor Zhuwei was trying to say at this moment. F*CK. He was being forcefully summoned to open a dungeon. If Lin had not had his fortune read, he might have wanted to give this a try. However, he was now extremely popular, and he was being asked to go to an alternate realm to dig for treasures. Wasn't this clearly a F*king trap for him to jump into? This was a rare opportunity, so he might as well give it to these seniors. After all, there were 60 soul formation stage cultivators in the palace. Emperor Zhuwei had only chosen 30, so the competition was going to be fierce. And Lin was giving this golden opportunity to others. He was a good person with unquestionable integrity. Others would definitely be grateful to him. Just as these thoughts were running through his mind, a ding-dong sounded from his system. Chapter 474. If he had a choice, and Lin really didn't want to look at this *TTY system's missions. Sigh. If only he could send this despicable system out to harm others. This thought suddenly appeared in Lin's mind. For some reason, he suddenly thought of that old immortal, and his body shuddered as a chill ran down his spine. F*CK. I feel like I've been screwed over by him. However, Lin didn't have the system's transfer technology, and he didn't have the guts to transfer the system anyway. After all, his cultivation style had already reached an unfathomable level. If he lost this system, he really wouldn't know how to cultivate anymore. Even though he didn't know how to cultivate even with the system, it was still better than having no direction. He opened the system interface as he heaved a forlorn sigh. Sure enough, the Special Missions tab was glowing with a despicable light. Detected that host has a chance to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Now assigning the following mission. Obtain 10 Golden Realm Essence Crystals within a month and absorb them. Mission success. Obtain the embryonic body of the War God. Mission failure. Host will become a eunuch for 100 years. Note, this mission cannot be declined. Lin chuckled coldly as the veins on his forehead bulged. He had been a eunuch for 3 years before, but now he was a eunuch for 100 years? F*CKU. This was too much. Even though he would remain chaste for Su Xiaolan for 100 years. That didn't mean he could endure being separated from his second brother for 100 years. And Lin was now caught in a dilemma. If he wanted to complete this mission, he had to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. However, doing so would be equivalent to jumping into the crater of a meteorite. He would have to follow the flow of fate and walk toward a bright future. If he wanted to make a drastic change, which meant that he had to escape the flow of fate, then he would have to make a decision that he would never have made in the past. He would become a eunuch for 100 years. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes as he thought about this. He didn't think that the flow of fate would be so strong. This was an extremely difficult change to make. And Lin, are you planning to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm? Wang Xuanzhan suddenly asked. And Lin looked at Wang Xuanzhan and replied with a question of his own. If there were 2 choices placed in front of you, one was that you would have to face an extremely terrifying calamity, and the other was that you could escape from danger but would become a eunuch for 100 years. Which would you choose? Hearing this, Wang Xuanzhan's cold face convulsed slightly. I, Wang Xuanzhan, am a man of indomitable spirit, he said solemnly. I, Wang Xuanzhan, am a man of indomitable spirit. I can't be a eunuch for even a day. And Lin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. I think so too. This is a man's dignity. Even if the road ahead is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, second brother can't be lost. Yes, that was it. This is our bottom line, and it is also our principle. No calamity can make us yield. Wang Xuanzhan was burning with passion. Wow, what are you guys talking about? It sounds like it's something awesome. At this moment, a beautiful woman in a red dress made her way over to them. There was a pair of golden bracelets on her fair wrists. Seeing that it was a beautiful woman, and Lin and Wang Xuanzhan didn't dare to continue discussing this topic. They immediately blushed and changed the subject. Wang Xuanzhan explained with an awkward yet polite smile, "We were discussing whether we should go to the ancient Tai Chu realm or not." And Lin nodded. "Then we came to the conclusion that we can't back down if we're a man. Does that mean women can back down?" The woman covered her mouth as a vibrant smile appeared on her face. And Lin chuckled dryly. If it weren't for that F***ket up mission, he would definitely back down. "Hello, my name is Yang Ruoling, and my Dao title is Ling Yu." The woman introduced herself. "Hello, my name is Wang Xuanzhan, and my Dao title is Qing Kong." Wang Xuanzhan also introduced himself in a polite manner. They had already introduced themselves, so Enlin could only say, "Hello, Fairy Ling Yu. My name is Enlin, but I don't have a Dao title yet." "Huh? You're Enlin from the Celestial Court?" The woman's eyes lit up. "I heard from Department Head Shun of the Dark Marshlands Executive Department that your Dao title is the Tamer of Divine Lightning." Wang Xuanzhan smiled. Classmate Enlin has many Dao titles, such as Poison Lord, Heaven-Pointing Daoist, Bao Shen. Enlin's chest constricted upon hearing this, but he was roaring with rage in his heart. "That's a Dao title? You're talking about a F***king Dao title. Are you guys crazy? Or do you think I, Enlin, am crazy to use such a title as a Dao title?" After a short conversation, Enlin learned that Yang Ruoling was also their senior sister. She was over 100 years older than them, and she was also one of the most influential figures in the Celestial Court. However, she had been stuck at the soul formation pinnacle stage for many years and was unable to find an opportunity to cross over. She was most likely not going to give up on this opportunity to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. All right, the time for consideration is over. Those who have decided to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm, please place a wisp of your divine sense into this white bead, and I will begin the selection process. Emperor Ziwei's voice suddenly sounded. Most of the people in the White Palace sprang into action. Enlin gritted his teeth and also placed a wisp of his divine sense into the bead. Within the palace, the 5 return to Void Stage Immortals had already been decided. Among the 60 Soul Formation Stage Earth Immortals, only 2 gave up on the right to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. This meant that among the 58 Soul Formation Stage Earth Immortals, 28 would be eliminated. This was quite an intense competition. Soon, Emperor Ziwei decided on the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. The list of people who will be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm has been decided. The Day Patrol God, Night Patrol God, Giant Spirit God, Lu Dongbin, and Celestial Maiden, he will be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. The ancient divine realm will be entered by Bu Tang, Long Xinhong, Chun Daoyun, Lu Chuchu, Wang Xuanzhan, and Yang Ruoling. Emperor Ziwei announced the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. Some people were ecstatic, while others were dejected and disappointed. Enlin's expression was different from everyone else's. He was in shock, as if he had been struck by lightning. His expression froze on his face, and his mouth gaped open as if he had heard some extremely terrifying information. His name wasn't on the list. His name wasn't on the list of people who would be entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. Wang Xuanzhan offered words of consolation upon seeing Enlin's strange expression. "It's all right, Mr. Enlin. The path of cultivation is very long, and this world is also very big. There are countless opportunities waiting for you. You've only lost one opportunity. It's no big deal." Enlin murmured to himself, "You won't understand. To you, this is just a lost opportunity, but to me, this is like losing my little brother." "Huh?" Wang Xuanzhan stared at Enlin with a confused expression. Tears welled up in Enlin's eyes, and he suddenly burst into laughter. "So that's how it is. Is this what it means to be a calamity that's almost purple? Entering the incomparably perilous ancient Tai Chu realm was a calamity. Being a eunuch for 100 years was also an extremely terrifying calamity for him. His mission was destined to fail, and he was destined to be a eunuch for 100 years. Wasn't it a little too difficult to divert his fate from this calamity? There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, and there was nothing he could do. Chapter 475. And Lin suddenly clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. I won't give up. He turned his gaze toward the throne in the palace as he spoke. There was no time left. He had to secure a spot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm within this short period of time. And Lin took a deep breath, and his expression became extremely determined as he made his way toward Emperor Zhui. Emperor Zhui opened his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his face as he looked at Enlin walking toward him. Enlin extended a respectful salute before cutting straight to the chase. Emperor Zhui, I want to secure a spot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. I feel like I'm no less powerful than some of the seniors who have entered the ancient Tai Chu realm, so please give me a chance. Oh, Mr. Enlin, I didn't think you would have the courage to venture into a perilous place. Emperor Wei paused momentarily before continuing. I know you're quite powerful, and you do deserve a spot on the list to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. However, I refuse. You definitely can't enter. And Lin was rooted to the spot upon hearing such a direct rejection. He only asked after a few seconds, why? Because I can see that your glabella has turned black, and it's not suitable for you to travel. After all, you're even more important to the celestial court than the average celestial immortal. Emperor Zhui replied with a meaningful expression. And Lin was stunned once again. His glabella had turned black? What the F***? Was his calamity already this obvious? And Lin took a deep breath before replying in a firm voice. Obey and become a mortal. Defy and become an immortal. If I run and hide every time I encounter any difficulty, how will I be able to reach the pinnacle of the great Tao? Emperor Ziwei's eyes lit up. Oh, that's right. A satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face. Thankfully, he had read many cultivation novels in the past, so he wasn't afraid of running out of lines. I'm willing to dedicate my youth and blood to obtain realm essence crystals so that I can contribute to the construction of the celestial court. I want to bring the celestial court back to its former glory. And Lin became more and more enthusiastic as he spoke. Emperor Zhui, how about this? Mighty Spirit God still has a mission to guard the southern heavenly gate, so it's a little inappropriate to force him to go to the ancient Tai Chu realm. How about you take his place and go to the Void Star section? Emperor Zhui suggested with a smile. Void Star section? Isn't that a place that only returned to Void stage mighty figures can enter? I can't enter at all. And Lin was astonished. Only the ancient divine division has a cultivation-based restriction, Emperor Zhui explained. The Void Star section doesn't have too many cultivation-based restrictions. All cultivators below the return to Void Intermediate stage are allowed to enter. It's just that the passageway can only accommodate so few people, and the place is too dangerous. That's why we're sending return to Void stage celestial immortals there. And Lin was having a mental breakdown. He was a soul formation stage cultivator, and he had to play with a bunch of return to Void stage cultivators? This was a perilous place where even return to Void stage mighty figures could perish. He didn't have that kind of courage. Not even 100 Liang Jingru. What's wrong? I've given you a chance, but you're backing out now? Didn't you say that those who submit will become mortals, and those who resist will become immortals? Emperor Zhui couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Lin's hesitant expression. What was the difference between going to the Void Star section and committing suicide? Of course, he had to hesitate. Now that he thought about it, it didn't seem like a bad idea to live the rest of his life with Su Xiaolan for 100 years. Right, Mr. Lin, I won't scare you anymore. A mischievous expression suddenly appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face as he pulled out a black robe from his storage ring and handed it to Enlin. Enlin didn't know what this robe was, but he had no reason not to accept it since it was a gift from someone. He accepted the black robe to find that there was a faint white light shimmering on the surface of the robe, as if there were countless stars in the night sky. This is the illusionary star robe. It can hide you from the detection of star beasts, and it also has the ability to disguise your cultivation base. Only mighty figures of the Tao integration stage or above will be able to see through this disguise. This is an immortal tool, and I'm giving it to you now. After entering the ancient divine division, I need you to help me collect a stardust fruit from the huge starry mountain, Emperor Zue said with a smile. Lin was ecstatic to hear this. Which means, I can enter the ancient divine division now? Emperor Zue nodded. That's right. You will be the 31st person to enter the ancient divine division. Our celestial court's passageway to the ancient divine division has been inspected after the commotion in the ancient Tai Chu realm, and we have discovered that there is one more person that can pass through. Are you surprised? Lin, surprised my A** guess. Why did they intentionally leave one spot open? He had a feeling that someone had dug a pit and was waiting to jump into it. He couldn't help but ask, Senior Ziwei, how did you know I would ask you for a spot to enter the ancient divine division? A profound smile appeared on Emperor Ziwei's face. I calculated it. And Lin was struck by a sense of deep veneration. So impressive. Emperor Ziwei thought to himself, I have 100 ways to make you enter the ancient divine division, regardless of whether you come to beg me or not. As the future hope of the celestial court, you have to go to the ancient divine division, even if you don't want to. And Lin stowed the illusionary star robe into his storage ring before departing. Wang Xuanzhan and Yang Ruoling immediately made their way over to him. Lin, what did you talk to Emperor Ziwei about? Wang Xuanzhan asked. It's done. Lin replied with a smile. Done? What do you mean? Yang Ruoling was confused. I can also go to the ancient divine division. Lin replied with excitement. Wang Xuanzhan, Yang Ruoling, what is it? Lin was perplexed at the sight of their shocked expressions. Wang Xuanzhan was a little hesitant. You, Emperor Ziwei, made an exception and allowed you to go to the ancient divine division? Lin nodded. He also told me some other things, but that's the gist of it. The number 1 backdoor entrant of Xiaoxin United University, you really do live up to your name. Yang Ruoling exclaimed. Lin, a thought suddenly occurred to Yang Ruoling, and she asked nervously, Then who did you push down? Lin shook his head. I didn't push anyone down, so the number of people who can enter the ancient divine division is now 31. Even Wang Xuanzhan was astonished this time, and he gave Lin a thumbs up. Impressive. That works? Yang Ruoling was in disbelief. Lin felt like they had misunderstood something, and he immediately provided an explanation. It's not what you think, it's just that the passageway can only accommodate 31 people. There's no need to explain, classmate Lin, I understand. Wang Xuanzhan nodded. A light blush appeared on Yang Ruoling's face, and she seemed to have mustered up her courage as she said, After I progress to the return to void stage, can you ask Emperor Ziwei to transfer me to the Heavenly Court's Flower Palace as a palace lord or something? And Lin, what kind of person do you think I am? Do you think I'm that kind of backdoor entrant? Chapter 476. All of the cultivators who didn't receive a slot to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm were teleported away by an extremely vast power. In the end, there were only 36 people left in the palace, 5 of which were return of void stage, and 31 of which were soul formation stage. Emperor Ziwei tossed out another 36 spatial teleportation talismans to everyone. The ancient Tai Chu realm will only be open for a month. Once the time is up, the spatial teleportation talismans will teleport you back to the celestial court. All 35 of them received a silver spatial teleportation talisman. Only Lin received a large and thick golden spatial teleportation talisman. Then, he instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. Lin, why is mine a nouveau riche? As if in response to Lin and everyone else's questions, the North Pole Emperor smiled and said, Lin is on a special mission, so this golden spatial teleportation talisman can be activated at any time. Remember, your life is the most important. His words were still echoing in the air, and everyone else could hear the meaning behind his words. Emperor Ziwei had made no attempt to hide the fact that he had said this in front of everyone. so he was clearly giving everyone some sort of hint. Some of the cultivators who knew the inside story or had been to the ancient Tai Chu realm 500 years ago were even more astonished. They knew that due to the special nature of the ancient Tai Chu realm, only one cultivator would be able to obtain a golden teleportation talisman. This teleportation talisman was usually given to the leaders of return to void stage cultivators. This was the first time it had been given to a soul formation stage cultivator. And Lin discovered that everyone was looking at him in a different light. In particular, Yang Ruoling's eyes were filled with a scorching, beseeching light. At this moment, he really wanted to shout out loud that he had obtained this teleportation talisman through his own strength, not through connections. And Lin silently put away the golden teleportation talisman. At this moment, only this teleportation talisman could give him a trace of warmth. After that, Emperor Ziwei introduced the situation in the ancient Tai Chu realm to everyone. These were all information exchanged with the blood of his predecessors. The more Lin listened, the more terrifying that place became. The strange environment, the distorted space, and living beings, the chaotic laws. Not only that, but they also had to face the threat of other hostile forces on the Tai Chu continent. When they were lucky, only a few people died when they ventured into the ancient region. If they were unlucky, they would be annihilated. Regardless of whether they were returned to void stage or soul formation stage cultivators, they were all dead, and they didn't even know how they died. However, there were still many people that headed to that world without any hesitation. It wasn't only for the sake of the powers they belonged to, it was also for their own sake. There were even opportunities beyond the Dao integration stage there, which was enough to drive anyone crazy. And Lin needed to collect a stardust fruit from a huge starry mountain. The huge starry mountain was an ethereal and unpredictable place, and it was said that it would shift according to the stars. As such, even the North Pole Emperor couldn't pinpoint the exact location of the stardust fruit, so Lin would have to find it himself. All Emperor Ziwei could do was give Lin an illusionary star robe and an illustration of what stardust fruits looked like. Time passed slowly, and Lin informed Su Xiaolan and the others via voice transmission talisman that he would be leaving for the ancient Tai Chu realm for a month. Soon, it was time for the passageway to the ancient domain to open. A mighty force enveloped them, and as the space around them changed, they arrived in a dark secret chamber. At the center of the secret chamber, there were two golden gates of light, one large and one small, both of which exuded a gentle light. However, a sense of oppression emanating from the two worlds struck everyone with a sense of asphyxiation. Return to void stage cultivators will enter the ancient Tai Chu realm through the large golden gate, while soul formation stage cultivators will enter the ancient Tai Chu realm through the small golden gate. After entering the ancient domain, your locations will be randomly scattered. Please remember, among the 16 ancient powers that have a passageway into the ancient realm, except for the Buddhist kingdom, the Garden of Eden, the Genesis Sanctum, the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, the North Song Mountain realm, and the Spirit Lake realm, all the other powers and races are your enemies. Emperor Ziwei's words jolted the hearts of everyone in the secret chamber. In the ancient domain, it was very common for hostile powers to fight for treasures. So their enemies weren't just the living beings of the ancient Tai Chu realm. There were also powerful beings from other powers. The heavens bless the human race. I wish you all a safe return. Emperor Ziwei spoke in a slow voice. A faint smile appeared on Lu Dongbin's face as he stepped through the golden gate. With him leading the way, everyone stepped into the passageway between the two worlds. Take care, classmate and Lin. Wang Xuanzhan patted Lin's shoulder before turning to walk through the golden gate. You too, senior student Wang. Lin took a deep breath before also walking through the golden gate. Within a frozen castle in the holy glacial lands, a golden spatial gate glowed with a dazzling light. High Priestess Meng Ji was facing off against 23 snow maidens, which consisted of 3 holy palace leaders and 20 soul formation stage snow maidens. Palace leaders, you must remember that your goal is to obtain the fragment of the realm core at all costs. We have no other way out. Snow maidens who will enter the ancient divine division. Your mission is to help Shangguan reach the heavenly snow abyss snow mountain and awaken the soul aura of the ice matriarch. All 23 snow maidens bowed their heads in unison. As you command, Shangguan Yi's eyes were like mirrors, and they contained a world of ice and snow that was completely different from this world. Her beauty was exquisite, and her expression was cold and aloof. As she bowed her head slightly, it was as if she had become one with heaven and earth, and her aura was ethereal and ethereal. Now, then, please enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Mengji pointed her divine staff toward the 2 golden gates, and ripples of water rippled as an extremely gentle light emanated from the gates. A holy palace leader of the Return to Void stage was the first to enter the Gate of Light, but the gates suddenly cracked open. The terrifying power of the gate repelled the holy palace leader. PFFF. The holy palace leader threw up a mouthful of blood as she flew through the air. At the same time, the golden light began to surge violently. Crap! The passageway between the 2 worlds has become unstable and is in danger of collapsing. I'll use my divine power to stabilize the passageway between the 2 worlds. Hurry up and enter. Mengji's expression shifted as she pointed her divine staff toward the 2 golden gates, upon which boundless divine power surged forth. All of the snow maidens immediately flew into the golden gates without any hesitation. After all of the snow maidens had entered the golden gates began to crumble. An extremely fearsome backlash that was imbued with the power of the barrier between the 2 worlds swept toward Mengji. Mengji's body was struck by that terrifying force, and her slender body crashed through the castle before flying back over 50 kilometers like a streak of light. In the end, blue blood trickled down the corner of her lips. All we have to do now is wait for the passageway to open again in a month. Who would have thought that even the passageway between the 2 worlds would have an accident? There have been so many accidents and disasters recently. Has the holy glacial land's luck run out? Mengji heaved a forlorn sigh as she looked at the vast expanse of frozen land. On a certain inky black floating continent on the Tai Chu continent, the Darkwing Emperor clasped his hands behind his back as a group of Darkwing tribe powerful beings knelt before him. 17 people. 17 people. We have 3 Return of Void stage and 15 Soul Formation stage cultivators. I told you to sign up, but you King left 1 person out. Aside from the monarchs who are on a mission, are all of our Return to Void stage cultivators so scared of death? The Darkwing Emperor's voice was imbued with the might of the heavens, and the winds and clouds surged as lightning crackled in the sky. All of the Darkwing tribe powerful beings bowed their heads in silence, and none of the Return to Void stage cultivators dared to step forward. Darkwing Emperor, within the Void Spirit Realm, the golden gate between the 2 worlds glowed with a dazzling light beneath the twisted 5-colored sky. An invisible being spoke in a depraved voice. Kukuku, go and kill all of the living beings within. The souls of the living beings there are very delicious. 6 Return to Void stage and 40 Soul Formation stage spirit bodies twisted their strange bodies as they walked into the Golden Gate with sinister smiles on their faces. The dark marshlands, the West Sea, the East Sea, the sinister spirit beast cesspool, the Western Paradise, the Holy Paradise, the Creation Realm, the North Song Mountain Realm, the Spirit Lake Realm, the Western Heavenly Dragon Forest, the Southern Heavenly Wing. Nation, the Kingdom of the 9 States, the Black Floating Continent, the Holy Glacial Lands, the Void Spirit Realm, the Demonic Realm. All of the most powerful beings from the 16 ancient powers began to enter the ancient Tai Chu realm. Chapter 477. Enlin walked through the Golden Gate to discover that there was a long golden passageway with no end in sight. He continued onward through this passageway that had no sense of spatial distance. After walking for an indeterminate amount of time, he was struck by a rush of dizziness. His vision blurred, and he arrived in the middle of a vast expanse of wilderness. Enlin looked around with curiosity to discover that there were 2 suns hovering in the sky. one of which was golden while the other was red. The sky was a combination of blue and purple, creating quite a peculiar sight to behold. The ground was very flat, and there were many small mounds protruding from the ground. Extremely noisy noises reverberated around his ears, as well as a series of rumbling booms. Lin turned to look beside him, upon which his mouth gaped open in astonishment. He saw a lot of ants on the ground. No, a lot of people. Right at this moment, a sharp pain shot through his face. Ow! Which mosquito bit me? Lin grimaced in pain as he slapped his face with his hand. However, the mosquito didn't manage to hit him. Instead, he discovered that there was a speck of blood on his hand. He turned toward the black shadow in the distance to discover that it wasn't a mosquito. It was a man with a pair of white wings. The mosquito wielding a blue longsword wore an expression of astonishment on his face. Who would have thought that you would be able to remain unscathed after being struck by one of the top 10 swordsmen of our Bronze Nation, Yinantian, as expected of the giant god fiend? Lin, the other party was speaking in the ancient man language, and Lin had already unleashed his divine sense, so he was finally able to hear what the other party was saying. Top 10 swordsman? Divine slaying sword? Giant god fiend? And Lin blinked in confusion as he suddenly discovered that his toes were throbbing with pain. He looked down to discover that several hundred people were slashing at his shoes with their sabers. They couldn't fly, so they had no choice but to hack at his shoes. Some of the more powerful cultivators used fire spell techniques to burn a large hole in their shoes, then fiercely chopped at their own toes. Unfortunately, their soul formation stage bodies were not something that could be broken by ordinary people, and almost all of the attacks only served to tickle him. One arrow after another flew toward Lin's white robe before being repelled. He also found that a few people were foaming at the mouth near the shoe hole, as if they were dead from the stench. Sigh, why bother? Die, giant god fiend. God-killing skill, sky flying sword. That Yinantian shouted. His long sword suddenly shot out a 10-centimeter long sword chi, as if it was going to pierce through the sky. His body moved along with his sword, stabbing furiously at the space between Lin's eyebrows. The corner of Lin's mouth twitched. He used his finger to pinch the 10 meters long sword chi, and the sword chi shattered. What? Yinantian widely opened his eyes in shock. Then a huge palm came toward him, covering all the light in the world. An expression of despair appeared on Yinantian's face. This giant god fiend was far too powerful, and he felt like his glorious career was about to come to an end. His body was pressed down by an enormous force, and he was unable to move. Just when he thought he was going to die in the next second, he discovered that death didn't come. He was just being held by the giant god fiend's hand and delivered to the giant. Am I going to be eaten? Yinantian fell into even more despair. He shuddered uncontrollably at the thought of his body being chewed on by the terrifying giant. This giant god fiend is indeed much more powerful than the one I killed before, but I, Yinantian, am not going to be humiliated like this. Yinantian roared as a bolt of lightning fell from the sky toward his head. He would rather die right now than become food for the giant god fiend. However, a scene that he couldn't understand appeared. The falling lightning suddenly turned around and rushed into the sky, exploding in the sky like a blue firework. Yinantian was in complete despair. This giant god fiend was even more terrifying than he had imagined. And Lin looked at Yinantian with a curious expression on his face. This Yinantian was only a centimeter tall, which was roughly what he would look like if he were shrunk down to 100 times his original size. Oi, let me ask you, which giant god fiend was so weak that it was killed by you? And Lin asked. Yinantian was clearly the most powerful being in this group, and he had just said that Lin was much more powerful than the giant god fiend he had killed before. And Lin was quite perplexed. Which lowly being could be killed by these lowly beings? They were way too weak. Yinantian's face was filled with shock as he listened to the deafening voice. You, giant god fiend, can speak. The little humanoid being that was attacking Lin's shoes and trousers also stopped its attacks upon hearing the voice before staring at Lin with shock etched on its face. I understand a bit of the ancient man language that you're speaking. And Lin nodded. Wulsh asterisk T. This is clearly the Tai Chu language. Yi Nan Tian roared. All right. You're small, so you're right. If you answer my questions honestly, I can spare your lives. And Lin smiled. Yi Nan Tian's body shuddered upon hearing this, and he gritted his teeth. That was a giant god fiend that was even thicker than you. However, it had long black fur all over its body, and all 4 of its limbs were on the ground. Its muscles were extremely powerful, and its fists could shatter mountains, and its feet could shake the ground. It was extremely terrifying, but it was still killed by my divine slaying sword. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. You're talking about a F***ing gorilla, right? It must be a gorilla, right? Have you never seen a gorilla before after living for so long? Yi Nantian looked at Lin before continuing. You look more like a human, and you can even speak. So giant god fiends can also evolve. Evolve my A** guess. Those are 2 F***king different things. No, they should be the same thing. Aren't humans evolved from gorillas? There's nothing wrong with that statement. And Lin thought about it for a moment before replying. Yi Nantan, all the minions, but I have no vendetta against you, so why are you attacking me and stabbing me with your swords? And Lin grumbled. There was a hole in his shoe, so he had to change his shoes again. To his surprise, the several hundred minions on the ground immediately erupted into an uproar. Many of them even let loose a torrent of abuse, and some of the more courageous ones continued to stab his shoe with their spears. Yi Nantian roared with rage. You have no vendetta against us. How dare you say you have no vendetta against us? You killed our king, who personally led the army into battle. This kind of blood feud. How dare you say there is no enmity between us? I killed your king? And Lin blinked with confusion. Look under your foot. Yi Nantian roared with rage. And Lin raised his left foot, but there was nothing there. He thought about it for a moment before raising his right foot again. There were a few flattened golden ants on the ground. Oh, there was also a man in a golden imperial robe who had been flattened and was no longer breathing. Chapter 478. This was King awkward. Who would have thought that he would accidentally trample their king to death? What was he supposed to do? Teleportation was random, so he could only land at a random location. He couldn't take the blame for this, could he? The miniature humans on the ground were still attacking his shoes in a frenzy, and there were even a dozen cannons firing relentlessly at his shoes. Even though his shoes were made of extraordinary materials, they were still charred black. And Lin's brows furrowed. I just happened to appear here and step on your king. What you're doing is going too far. To be reasonable, I'm also innocent. You're innocent? Then who's going to bear the pain of our king's death? Who's going to take responsibility? Yi Nantian glowered at Lin and spat on Lin's finger. And Lin, what a fearless man. Should I just crush him to death? And Lin wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Otherwise, he would be able to wipe out all of these soldiers with a single slap. He had to bear some responsibility for this. After all, their king had rushed into battle, yet he was accidentally trampled to death by a giant. The soldiers' first reaction was to kill the giant to avenge their king. Lin killing their king was an accident, but was also a fact. He pondered for a moment before pulling out a set of high-rank magic tools from his storage ring. Torrential pear blossom needles. There were over 1,000 miniature silver needles, all of which shone with a dazzling light under the sun. I didn't do it on purpose, but I did accidentally trample your king to death. I'll use these torrential pear blossom needles as compensation. What do you think? And Lin offered. Do you think we'll forgive you just because you're giving us weapons? Our king's life is priceless. You can't exchange it for anything. Yi Nantian was roaring, but he immediately drew a sharp intake of breath when he sensed the energy fluctuations emanating from the needles. The hundreds of soldiers on the ground also stopped attacking as they stared blankly at the silver needles in the sky. Giant god fiend, you're giving all of this to me? You are too kind. The king of the Bronze Kingdom, it doesn't matter if he dies. You didn't do it on purpose anyway. Just find another one, Yi Nantian said with a smile. And Lin, Yinantian was shocked in his heart. The materials of those needles, the energy waves, were actually as powerful as his divine sword. Once he obtained these 1,000 silver needles, it would be equivalent to obtaining 1,000 divine swords. What did that mean? With these swords, he would be able to build an invincible army of gods. A king was nothing. In the future, he would lead a group of soldiers to unify the world. Sure enough, the soldiers on the ground stopped attacking Enlin. They all looked at the silver needles with fervent gazes, their eyes revealing great desire. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, only strength was the greatest thing they could rely on to survive. In front of so many divine weapons, they were finally tempted. Enlin loosened his grip on Yinantian. Yinantian eagerly stowed away the 1,000 silver needles with his spatial magic tool. Enlin didn't feel any heartache. It was only a set of high-rank magic tools, which couldn't even be considered spirit tools. It was quite amusing that these people treated them as divine weapons. He really didn't know how such weak people managed to survive in this world. By the way, do you know where I can find realm essence crystals? Also, I want information on the huge starry mountain. And Lin asked with a curious expression on his face. Realm essence crystals? Huge starry mountain? Yinantian was perplexed. And Lin thought for a moment before explaining. Realm essence crystals are white, green, blue, red, and gold crystals that contain the essential power of the world. Yinantian scratched his head before pulling out a bunch of white, green, blue, red, and gold crystals from his spatial magic tool. Is this it? And Lin, these are F** King precious stones, not realm essence crystals. All right, it looked like these people didn't know anything. That made sense. They were so weak, so how could they have come into contact with something of this caliber? Then tell me everything you know about this world. And Lin continued. No problem, my pleasure. Yinantian was the #1 general of the Bronze Nation, so he knew even more information than their king. He was just about to speak when a white ball of light suddenly flashed. Yinantian's brows furrowed slightly before he activated his power, upon which an urgent voice sounded from within. General Yinantian, the demonic beasts of the northern barren mountain and the soldiers of the Waterplane Nation have suddenly joined forces to attack our capital city. We are about to fall. Hurry up and come back to reinforce us. What? Those stars from the Waterplane Nation have joined forces with the demonic beasts? How dare they? I'll come back right away. Yinantian flared up with rage. The white ball of light suddenly disappeared, and Yinantian turned to Enlin with a troubled expression. Enlin was very understanding. Do you want to return to the Bronze Nation? Do you want me to give you a ride? You want to come to the Bronze Nation to help us? Yinantian looked at Enlin with a scorching light in his eyes. Helping us kill our enemies is another matter, but I can definitely take you back to the Bronze Nation. Enlin smiled. That's great. You really are different from the other giant god fiends. You're a good person. Yinantian was extremely excited. Enlin's chest constricted upon hearing this. Was it a trend for despicable people to give out good person cards now? He expanded the black brick before using a spell technique to transfer all of the soldiers on the ground onto the black brick before flying into the sky. All of the soldiers, including Yinantian, were astonished by Enlin's abilities. A god fiend that could use spell techniques. How terrifying. Master God Fiend, please slow down. You're flying too fast. I can't see the road. Yinantian trembled as he stood at the forefront of the black brick. Never would he have thought that a heaven-ranked cultivator like him would be frightened by a terrifying flying speed one day. Thus, the journey that would take the army over 10 days was completed by Enlin in less than 7 to 8 minutes. He was greeted by the sight of all types of miniature houses and miniature humans. He didn't even dare to fly his black brick too low in order to avoid being blown away by the gale force winds. Soon, they arrived at the capital city of the Bronze Nation. The city walls of the capital city were extremely grand and were at least 38 centimeters tall. A massive battle was taking place at the northern city gate. Over 1,000 spear-wielding ants and over 1,000 weapon-wielding Waterplane Nation soldiers were attacking the city walls relentlessly. one of the 10 swordsmen of the Bronze Nation. Niahao, who was also one of the defending generals, raised an arm and yelled from atop the city wall, "Hold on. I've already informed His Majesty and General Yi Nantian of this battle. They'll definitely come to our aid within 3 days." The horns of battle were blown, and the war drums were beating. The soldiers fought with all their might to defend against the attacks from both sides. "Ha ha! 3 days is more than enough time for us to take down this city. You didn't think that the demonic beasts would cooperate with us, did you?" A general wielding a 1 centimeter long sword chortled with glee. Right at this moment, a burst of white mist descended from the sky. Blurry figures began to appear from within the white mist. The intense battle slowly began to die down, and everyone turned their eyes toward the white mist. A gust of wind blew past, and the white mist dissipated. Over 800 soldiers appeared on the battlefield, each of them wielding a silver spear that exuded terrifying energy fluctuations. The general at the forefront stood on the spot as an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body. Who dares to invade our nation? Regardless of whether they were allies or enemies, all of them drew a sharp intake of breath as they stared blankly at the army descending from the sky. Niahao, who was guarding the city, had a look of shock on his face. Hasn't it only been 15 minutes? How did the army suddenly arrive here? What the F***CK? Yi Nantian, the general of the Water Plain Nation, exclaimed with incredulity. Yi Nantian held his sword horizontally in front of him as he replied in a cold voice, "That's me." Chapter 479. Niahao stared at Yi Nantian with a dumbstruck expression. He rubbed his eyes to find that it was still the same familiar figure, except that it seemed to have become even more imposing. The River Plain Nation general quickly composed himself and raised his long sword high into the air as he roared, "Quick! Yi Nantian's army has been separated from the soldiers defending the city. This is the perfect opportunity to annihilate them. Let's charge over and stop them from getting onto the city wall." All of the soldiers and mutant beasts came to their senses and roared as they pounced toward this army. Niahao also came to his senses and yelled, "Quick! Cover the soldiers outside the city and get them to retreat into the city." There were over 1,000 enemy soldiers and over 1,000 ferocious mutant beasts outside the city. There is a massive disparity between the 800 soldiers led by Yi Nantian and them, so they had to retreat into the city first. However, Yi Nantian merely chuckled coldly as he raised his long sword high into the air. "This is the first battle that will make our southern heavenly army famous. Follow me and charge." Charge! The 800 soldiers were fearless as they charged toward the southern heavenly army with the torrential pear blossom spears in their hands. The River Plain Nation general faltered slightly upon seeing this before a look of elation appeared on his face as he materialized a pair of wings of air and pounced toward Yi Nantian. "Yi Nantian, you're courting death. Just wait for those few hundred soldiers to be trampled to death by my army. Yi Nantian, what are you doing? Hurry up and retreat. As long as we hold the city, we can slowly plan our counterattack." Niahao yelled. A faint smile appeared on Yi Nantian's face. Now is the time to retaliate. They're done for. The River Plain Nation army clashed with the Southern Heavenly Army, but no intense clashes ensued. The River Plain Nation army's formation was torn apart like tofu by the Southern Heavenly Army. The torrential pear blossom spears of the Southern Heavenly Army were imbued with white vital energy, and they were like indestructible divine weapons that sliced the enemy soldiers in half before they even had a chance to touch the tip of the spears. The River Plain Nation soldiers were all dumbstruck. Their weapons, armor, and shields were all torn apart like tofu in the face of the silver spears. The ferocious ant beasts, ladybug beasts, and caterpillar beasts were also torn apart by the terrifying spear without any resistance. The beast armor they were most proud of couldn't even withstand a single blow from the torrential pear blossom spear. The eyes of the River Plain Nation general who was battling Yi Nantian contracted as an incredulous expression appeared on his face. "Are those spears all divine tools?" "Ha ha, that's right. Die, you old dog." Yi Nantian laughed loudly. His sword was like a dragon, slashing towards Sitalang. What kind of opportunity did Yinantian get? Niahau murmured. On the ground below, the Southern Sky soldiers cut down the River Plain Nation soldiers and mutant beasts like they were chopping melons and vegetables. They were like an invincible army, sweeping through all obstacles with unstoppable force. The River Plain Nation soldiers and mutant beasts were all given a fright. They had only been fighting for a short while, but blood was already flowing all over the ground. Furthermore, it was all their blood, and the Southern Sky soldiers had suffered very few casualties. Just as the battle was over, dark clouds suddenly appeared in the sky along with the rumbling of thunder. A black praying mantis rushed out from the dark clouds with a man in a white robe in its scythe-like hands. The number one powerful being of the Bronze Nation, Wei Long, is dead. Are you still not going to surrender? The mantis' voice spread throughout the entire battlefield, and countless soldiers looked up into the sky. Yinantian and Niahau's expressions shifted drastically as they stared at the man in the mantis' hands in shock. How could this be? Wei Long was defeated. He's the only divine rank being in our nation. Niahau murmured. It's over. Who would have thought that there would be a divine rank being among the mutant beasts? And they even managed to kill Wei Long. Yi Nanshan's face was filled with grief and indignation. They were divided into 4 ranks: human, earth, heaven, and divine. The power of a divine rank being was enough to determine the outcome of a battle involving thousands of soldiers. If Yinantian was given a few more years, he would also have a chance to become a divine rank being. But now, cuckoo, if you won't surrender, then I'll eat all of you. The black mantis cackled menacingly before swallowing Wei Long into its stomach right in front of all the soldiers. All of the Bronze Nation soldiers gritted their teeth as flames of rage burned in their eyes. All of the River Plain Nation soldiers were elated. They could see a glimmer of hope for victory. I didn't think that there would be so many good weapons here. I'll be taking them. The black mantis turned its gaze toward the Southern Heavenly Army soldiers on the ground, and its eyes glowed with greed. Boom! An extremely powerful aura erupted from the black mantis, and it transformed into a black tornado that swept toward the army of over 800 soldiers before slaughtering the Southern Heavenly Army soldiers on the ground. Retreat! Yinantian roared. Right at this moment, a faint exclamation of surprise suddenly sounded in the sky. A gargantuan black brick broke through the clouds. The black brick was over 20 feet wide, and it obscured the entire sky. All of the soldiers on the battlefield felt as if the entire sky had darkened. Whoosh! The black brick disappeared, and a gargantuan figure landed on the ground, causing the entire ground to tremor violently. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the gargantuan figure. Some of the soldiers dropped their weapons in fright as they stared blankly at the gargantuan figure. Giant god fiend? Unlin looked up at the black mantis in the sky with a smile on his face. I'm interested in your aura. Come here, let's have a good chat. Everyone was shocked to hear this. This giant god fiend could King talk. The black mantis' eyes narrowed as it swung its side-like claws toward Enlin. Chat my guess. It's not like I've never killed a giant god fiend before. Die. Terrifying energy burst forth from the black praying mantis's claws as it spoke. Black mist gathered around its claws, forming blade projections that extended for several meters like black swords. They tore through the air and slashed toward Enlin's neck with a sharp screech. So fast, Niahau and Yi Nanshan's hearts jolted in unison. Stop messing around. Enlin chuckled before unleashing a palm toward the black mantis. The palm projection was as fast as lightning and imbued with a boundless aura. Before the palm had even come into contact with the mantis, the black blade projection was already torn apart by the devastating palm projection before crashing into the mantis body. PFFF. The black mantis let loose a wail of anguish before throwing up a mouthful of blood as it flew through the air. All of the Bronze Nation and River Plain Nation soldiers were dumbstruck as they stared at the mantis that had been sent flying. A mighty divine, rank, powerful being was unable to withstand a single palm from the giant god-fiend. This giant god-fiend was countless times more terrifying than the giant god-fiends they had encountered in the past. Retreat! The River Plain Nation general roared before fleeing into the distance. All of the other soldiers and mutant beasts also lost all of their battle intent at the sight of the giant god-fiend as they fled for their lives. However, what was strange to them was that Nanshan soldiers had no intention of running away at all. Were they not afraid of this giant god-fiend? Just as they were thinking this, Lin had already turned toward the mutant beast before opening his mouth and spitting out a mouthful of saliva. The mouthful of saliva grew larger and larger before transforming into a ferocious wave that instantly engulfed the hundreds of mutant beasts before erupting with terrifying energy, tearing their bodies apart. All of the soldiers drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. A mouthful of saliva could engulf an entire army? What kind of power was this? The River Plain Nation soldiers' legs had turned to jelly, but they still persevered and continued to flee into the distance. The divine rank, powerful being, the black praying mantis, crawled up from the ground with great difficulty, and it fled into the distance with its battered body in fear at the sight of Lin's display of might. Lin chuckled coldly at the sight of the fleeing mantis before pulling out a massive saber that was 40 meters in length. Everyone looked up at the massive saber that seemed as if it were going to pierce through the heavens with shock. Yinan Tian murmured to himself, "My God, a saber can become this big? Little mantis, I can give you a 39-meter head start, but when the time comes, don't blame me for not holding back." A sinister smile appeared on Lin's face. The black mantis looked behind it, and it almost pissed its pants at the sight of the massive saber glowing with a frosty light. It immediately stopped in its tracks before falling to its knees and begging in a loud voice, "Please spare me, Master Godfiend. You can talk about anything you want, but please don't kill me." A satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face as he sheathed his 40-meter saber. That's a good boy. Chapter 480. Lin looked at the black praying mantis. "I can sense realm essence crystal fluctuations from your energy. Tell me, where are they?" The energy fluctuations from realm essence crystals were very special. They had the ability to make the space around them more viscous. Lin had already memorized this energy fluctuation from the realm essence crystals that Emperor Ziwei had displayed to him. He could now sense a similar energy fluctuation from the black, praying mantis's body. But this energy fluctuation was extremely faint, as if it were attached to his body. Realm essence crystals? What's that? The black praying mantis was confused. "Where did you get your power from?" Lin asked. "How else? I cultivated it with my own abilities." The black praying mantis felt like it had been insulted. "Lin, there's some kind of special energy fluctuation coming from your body. Did you come into contact with something that can enhance your power?" "Something that can enhance my power." The black praying mantis pondered for a moment before his body shuddered. "Are you talking about the baptism of the divine lake?" "What's the baptism of the divine lake?" Lin asked. "It's the most renowned lake on our continent. Within the Central Nation's imperial palace, every divine rank cultivator has a chance to enter the divine lake to be baptized. After the baptism, the divine rank cultivator's power will be enhanced to a certain extent," the black praying mantis explained. Lin nodded. Perhaps the energy contained within the divine lake was the energy that had escaped from the realm essence crystals. "Lead the way. I want to take a look at the divine lake." Lin smiled. The black praying mantis stared at Lin with shock and horror on his face. "You can't do that. The central city doesn't allow giant god-fiends to enter. If you show yourself, they'll view you as an enemy and kill you on the spot." Lin stepped forward and instantly appeared before the black praying mantis. He picked it up with a cold expression. "Kill me? That'll depend on whether they have the ability to do so. Cut the crap and lead the way, or I'll squash you to death." The black praying mantis was given a fright by Lin's monstrous speed. How could such a massive body possess such terrifying speed? With such power and speed, he might really be able to escape from the hands of that Holy Spirit. It thought about it and nodded. All right, I'll take you there, but you have to promise to let me go once we reach the deity's lake. And Lin sneered. That's not up to you. You don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me now. If you want to live, hurry up and lead the way. The Black Praying Mantis. Farewell, Godfiend and Lin. Yinantian bowed his head with a respectful expression. We respectfully send off and Lin, Godfiend. Several hundred Southern Sky soldiers saluted simultaneously, respectfully sending off and Lin's departure. And Lin had turned the tide and defeated the god-level mantis, turning the situation around and saving their country. This kindness was enough for them to do such a thing. And Lin nodded to Yi Nantian and the others with a smile. Only then did he soar into the sky with a black praying mantis and disappear into the clouds. Niahao watched the Southern Sky soldiers' actions and the departing in Lin, and a trace of realization dawned on him. The giant godfiend was probably the reason why they were able to arrive at this battlefield so quickly and obtain a divine tool each. Niahao couldn't help but ask as he watched Yi Nantian return to the city wall. General Yi, do you guys know that giant godfiend? Yi Nantian nodded. You can say that out of a fight, we get to know each other. Actually, and Lin is very intelligent and isn't the kind of monster that kills for no reason. He wouldn't hurt us humans for no reason. Out of a fight, we get to know each other? How did you get to know each other? Niahao asked curiously. He accidentally stomped our king to death, and then we got into a fight. Yinantian said with a solemn expression. Niahao's eyes and mouth widened in shock. He stomped our king to death. He had a feeling that something was missing, but he wasn't sure what it was. Only now did he realize that the King was gone. No, the king died. Even the king was stomped to death. You call that? Out of fight, we get to know each other. Niahao's lips twitched. If he wanted to, he could have killed all of us with one palm. However, in the end, he saved the Bronze Nation and gave us 1,000 divine tools. Who doesn't make mistakes? He's apologized so sincerely, so we should forgive him, Yinantian said. Niahao felt like this was a reasonable argument. Then we have to choose a new king, Yinantian nodded. Let's choose the second prince. He looks like a good candidate. Niahao, it looks like the second prince is the only one left, right? Yinantian, I hope the second prince can hold on. I sure hope so. Niahao looked up into the sky. In the sky above, and Lin was flying toward the central city under the guidance of the Black Praying Mantis. According to the Black Praying Mantis knowledge, the continent they were on was called the Tai Chu continent. The border of the Tai Chu continent was a boundless realm of extreme frost. Any living being that ventured into this realm of extreme frost would be frozen to death. The central city was located at the center of this continent and was definitely a neutral power. To humans, mutant beasts, and all other races, the central city was the most sacred and inviolable place. It was said that there were holy rank, powerful beings who had transcended the divine rank, guarding the central city and maintaining the stability of the entire continent at the same time. There were many countries on this continent, including several hundred countries, like the Bronze Nation. There were also the 10 great empires, each of which had a population of over 10 million and several divine rank powerful beings. From this, one could see how powerful the central city was to be able to maintain a transcendent position among so many forces. And Lin unleashed a concealment spell technique on himself and the Black Praying Mantis before surveying this strange world as they flew toward the central city. There were very few large animals in this world, but there were a lot of mutant beasts that were the size of insects. The surrounding environment was also like a miniature version of this world, with all kinds of small and adorable creatures. There were mountains that looked like mounds of dirt, lakes that looked like puddles, rivers that looked like creeks. After flying for an hour, they finally arrived at the central city. The central city was a vast expanse of pure white buildings that stretched as far as the eye could see. From Lin's perspective, the central city was quite spectacular. A series of white towers rose into the sky, and many of them were even taller than he was. The Holy Tower at the very center was over 100 meters tall. That was the true grand construction project. Within the central city, all races coexisted in harmony, and there were clear rules that all races were not allowed to fight within the city. If a battle were to break out, law enforcement would appear to apprehend the combatants on the spot. And Lin used a concealment spell technique to evade the detection of the city guards, and he flew directly toward the Divine Lake. And Lin took a deep breath as soon as he arrived above the Divine Lake. The Divine Lake was like a golden mirror, and it glowed with a majestic light under the light of the sun. Rich, essential energy fluctuations proliferated outward, creating an exhilarating sight to behold. However, all of that was secondary. The most important thing was that there were 4 tall towers standing in 4 different directions around the Divine Lake. The 4 towers shimmered with golden light, and their interiors were solid and solid. The exterior of the 4 towers was a series of independent rooms, and Lin's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Those 4 towers weren't just towers. They were F*King Realm Essence Crystals, and they were Golden Realm Essence Crystals of the highest grade. Holy F*CK. Using Realm Essence Crystals to construct towers? What a F*King waste. In order to ensure that these precious items could be used to their full potential, and Lin made a decision in his heart. These 4 Realm Essence Crystals were all his. They had to be his. Impudent god fiends! How dare you barge into the Divine Lake? Die! Right at this moment, a coarse, enraged roar sounded. Chapter 481. And Lin turned toward the source of the voice with a surprised expression to find a man glaring at him with an enraged expression. The man had golden hair, blue eyes, and a pair of pointy ears. His figure was the same as a miniature human, but he had a pair of semi-transparent wings that exuded golden light on his back. The wings were extremely thin, and every time they flapped, specks of golden light would appear in the air. And Lin immediately identified the man's species after seeing his appearance. He was an elf. The elf that had almost gone extinct on the Tai-Chu continent and only existed in the encyclopedia of various species. And Lin's interest was piqued. This was a living elf. His concealment technique was very simple, but it was still a spell technique unleashed by a soul formation stage mighty figure, so it wasn't something that just anyone could see through. However, this male elf was able to immediately see through his spell technique, which indicated that he was most likely quite powerful. The black praying mantis had also discovered the man flying in the air, and its body trembled with shock and horror. It's over. These energy fluctuations. He's a wholly rank, powerful being. And Lin didn't even get a chance to say anything before the male elf raised his hands toward the sky and yelled, "Divine lightning of the heavens, please help me destroy this evil god-fiend." The spiritual energy of heaven and earth instantly surged violently. Dark clouds suddenly gathered in the sky within a radius of over 1,000 feet as bolts of lightning danced through the air like silver snakes. Extremely powerful lightning energy was converging toward the black praying mantis with extremely fearsome might. Tears welled up in the black praying mantis eyes as it stared at the lightning clouds within a radius of over 1,000 feet. It was struck by how minuscule it was. "It's over. I'm gonna be blasted to smithereens." The black praying mantis lamented. Golden light suddenly erupted from the male elf's eyes as he pointed a finger at Enlin. "Divine lightning, blast him to death." Boom, boom, boom. Dark clouds surged in the sky as lightning crackled. However, no lightning fell. The male elf blinked in confusion as he felt like his posture was a little off, so he pointed a finger at Enlin again and unleashed another spell technique before stomping a foot into the air. "Divine lightning, blast this god-fiend to death." The dark clouds and lightning then began to dissipate, and the sun began to shine brightly. The male elf, how awkward. How could it be like this? Right at this moment, and Lin slowly said, "I'm not some god-fiend. I'm a giant mutated human. I'm here to discuss something with you guys." "Bah, giant humans? Do you think I'm an idiot?" The male elf glared at Enlin. 2 white swords of light suddenly condensed in his hands, and he pounced towards Enlin. The male elf's speed instantly broke through the speed of sound, stirring up a sonic boom behind him. The two white swords of light continued to extend, and in the end, they actually reached a length of more than 10 meters, furiously slashing towards Enlin. Enlin didn't dodge. He condensed his chi into a sword and slashed at the male elf. The male elf's white light sword collided with Enlin's energy sword, setting off gusts of wind. Then, the white light sword shone brightly and directly tore Enlin's energy sword apart. Die, evil fiend god! A golden light erupted from the male elf's eyes, and an expression of elation appeared on his face. The two white swords were imbued with terrifying power as they slashed toward Enlin's neck without any hesitation. Enlin's heart jolted with shock. This male elf's attack was comparable to that of a soul formation stage cultivator. In the blink of an eye, Enlin extended a single finger. Spatial congealing. Crack. The space around the male elf suddenly congealed as an extremely powerful sealing force locked him in place. This was the spatial congealing inheritance that Enlin had obtained from the Purple Star ruins. It could temporarily unleash the power to congeal all things. The male elf's eyes widened in shock as he stared at Enlin. Never would he have thought that the giant god fiend would be able to wield such terrifying power. Enlin didn't waste any words with him. He slapped the elf into the ground with all his might. Boom! The male elf's body crashed into the ground like a cannonball, creating a massive crater with a radius of over 10 meters. The male elf threw up a mouthful of blood as he lay limply in the crater. He had clearly been severely wounded by Enlin's slap. Enlin very rarely engaged in close-quarters combat, but that didn't mean that he wasn't good at it. After all, he was a soul formation intermediate stage, powerful being who had cultivated the Earth Lotus Supreme skill. In a situation where he was completely defenseless, his full force attack could definitely cripple a soul formation stage cultivator. The black praying mantis stared at the scenes unfolding before his eyes with incredulity. Before he even had a chance to heave a sigh of relief, another enraged roar sounded from the distance. Mandel, I'm here to help you. An extremely handsome male elf charged toward Enlin with flames revolving around his hands. Ron Harris, you're no match for him. Mandel yelled in a panicked voice as he lay in the crater. Harris didn't have time to think as he charged toward Enlin. He aimed his flame-wreathed hands at Enlin, and a huge flaming dragon over 1,000 feet in length instantly materialized in the air before pouncing toward Enlin. My God, it's another holy rank powerful being. Just how many powerful beings are hidden in the central city? The black praying mantis stared at the flaming dragon with shock and horror. Enlin looked at the flaming dragon with a resigned expression. Can't you just talk nicely? I'm not here to fight. I'm here to make a deal. He had already run out of patience. He pulled out his evil-slaying sword from his storage ring before slashing it toward the flaming dragon. A black sword projection made heaven and earth darken as the terrifying sword intent instantly sliced the flaming dragon in half. Blue lightning revolved around his fingertips as he pointed toward Harris in the distance. Lightning manipulation technique. Lightning amplification technique. Boom! Blue lightning erupted from the void before striking Harris at an extremely terrifying speed, charring his entire body black and causing his eyes to roll into the back of his head. Harris opened his mouth, and wisps of white smoke escaped from it as his body began to plummet toward the ground. Charge! Avenge his holy majesty. Due to the intense battle, the guardians of the central city had already arrived near the divine lake, and all of them charged toward Enlin. There were elves, humans, as well as powerful beings from unknown tribes and mutant beasts. Enlin's eyes turned a pure golden color as he looked at the hundreds of powerful beings charging toward him. A paramount divine might transformed into a semi-transparent golden ripple that proliferated outward. Divine might technique. All of the powerful beings within a radius of several thousand feet were struck by this golden ripple, and their eyes all rolled into the back of their heads as they fell unconscious. All of the powerful beings in the sky frothed at the mouth like mosquitoes with their wings snapped, temporarily losing the ability to fight. So powerful. His Holy Majesty, Enlin, you're definitely the king of all giant godfiends. The black praying mantis couldn't help but exclaim upon seeing this. He could sense that there were at least 10 divine rank powerful beings and over 100 heaven rank powerful beings among the oncoming powerful beings, but none of them were able to withstand a single glare from the godfiend. This godfiend's power had far exceeded the scope of his understanding. This wasn't a giant godfiend that only knew how to use brute force and black fur. This was a giant godfiend king that had evolved to an even higher level. Even 2 holy rank powerful beings have been defeated by Enlin, so who else could be a match for him? The entire central city was being suppressed by him alone. This was truly a one-man army. The black praying mantis felt like Enlin would definitely be able to rule over this world. He felt like he should put on a good performance to show his loyalty, then find an opportunity to follow Enlin and become the ruler of an entire world. With this in mind, the black praying mantis was immediately filled with battle intent. It flew towards one of the saints who had fallen to the ground and waved its sharp scythe, sneering, "Why aren't you going to surrender now? Enlin is a reasonable man. As long as you cooperate, he won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, I'm going to cut off your head with my bare hands." It felt so good to be able to speak to a holy rank, powerful being like this. Whoosh. An arrow of light flew through the air before instantly puncturing the black praying mantis body. It was extremely fast, so fast that the black praying mantis had no time to react. The black praying mantis stared blankly at the body that had just appeared in the hole, then at Mandel and Harris in the distance. Both of them were lying on the ground like dead fish without any movement, so it was clear that they weren't the ones who had done this. Then who did this? The black praying mantis didn't know. Am I going to die just like this? I haven't even followed in Enlin's footsteps to rule over this world yet, and I'm going to die just like this. The black praying mantis body began to be pulverized by a special force, and the wound on its body continued to expand. Before it completely fell into the darkness of death, it heard a crisp and pleasant voice. "Those who invade my central city shall die." Chapter 482. The black praying mantis body began to disintegrate before disappearing into specks of light. Enlin's body tensed up upon seeing this, and he turned toward a certain direction in the distance with rapt attention. 1.5 kilometers away, a female fairy with golden hair and blue eyes in a white dress flew toward Enlin at a terrifying speed. Her semi-transparent golden wings were fully extended, and she held a golden longsword in her hand. This female fairy's aura was extremely powerful. Even though her cultivation base was similar to that of the 2 holy rank powerful beings, her aura was far superior to that of the 2 holy rank powerful beings. If one had to describe it, it would be like the difference between a pond and the ocean. Mandel and Harris's dispirited expressions were reinvigorated by the sight of the female fairy. "It's the Holy Maiden. She's back. We're saved." At the same time, all of the powerful beings who had been struck by the divine might technique also turned toward the sky with undisguisable reverence and fanaticism on their faces. "It's the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden has returned from slaying the demonic dragon. The Holy Maiden is extremely powerful. No matter how powerful the giant godfiend is, it will definitely die," Enlin immediately said at the sight of the approaching female fairy. "Hold on, I'm not here to fight. Let's make a deal. A giant godfiend that can speak." The female fairy faltered slightly before her expression became even more grave. "It looks so similar to a human. Is it a mutated giant godfiend? We can't allow such a being to exist in this world." Enlin, the female fairy's killing intent surged even more, and the golden longsword in her hand continued to expand and elongate. In the end, it extended for over a kilometer before piercing through the clouds like a sharp sword piercing through the heavens. "It's here. That's the Holy Maiden's dragon, slaying Holy Sword. The Holy Sword is imbued with extremely fearsome holy power and can reduce several dozen mountains to dust with a single strike." The powerful beings on the ground below exclaimed. The golden longsword tore through the air with extremely fearsome power before crashing down toward Enlin. Enlin let loose an enraged roar as he unleashed his 6 strikes of the war god to meet the golden longsword head-on, unleashing an inky black sword projection. Boom! The two fearsome powers collided, and heaven and earth trembled as the earth cracked open. Enlin was sent flying by a terrifying force, and the female fairy was also sent flying. As she retreated, there was a look of shock on her face. A breath of time later, the two of them collided again. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying energy rippled out in all directions, shattering the ground in a radius of several hundred meters. The experts nearby couldn't bear the pressure and spat out blood. Enlin and the female elf fought from the ground to the sky. Every time they collided, it was like the roar of heavenly thunder in the void. It had been a long time since Enlin had used his sword techniques to his heart's content. Now that he was in a battle that he hadn't fought for a long time, every cell in his body seemed to have come alive, and the more he fought, the more energetic he became. He didn't think that the petite female fairy would be able to unleash power comparable to that of a soul formation pinnacle stage cultivator. With the strength of this female elf, in this place full of villains, she was an invincible existence. However, she didn't have any ambitions. Instead, she kept a low profile and only wanted to build a central city. This made Enlin even more curious. Thousand Light Shadows. The female elf's golden longsword suddenly transformed into over a meter in length swords of light that hung in the sky before crashing down like a torrential downpour. Enlin spread open his wings of wind, and he evaded the countless sword projections with his extremely fast movement techniques. In the end, his longsword was enshrouded in white winds, and he unleashed a wind sword technique, instantly appearing in front of the female elf before slashing a lethal white trajectory through the air. The female elf was even faster than he had anticipated. Her golden wings of light spread open, and her body flashed through the air for a short distance, similar to the power of spatial manipulation. She retreated over 10 meters, thereby evading Enlin's lethal attack. Ha! Again! Enlin chuckled as he pounced toward the female elf again. The female elf's intricate features paled slightly, but she still gritted her teeth as she charged toward Enlin. The battle between the two of them was earth-shattering, and the shockwave from their clash could even be felt as far as 5 kilometers away. The entire central city was swept up by gale-force winds, and everyone stared up at the relentless explosions of energy in the sky with trepidation in their eyes. Only now did they realize just how powerful the Holy Maiden was, as well as just how terrifying the giant godfiend she was battling was. Evil giant godfiend, I'm going to end your life with this attack. The Holy Maiden slit open her pristine white wrist, and golden blood drifted through the air. I offer my blood as a sacrifice to the Holy Sword. The golden blood began to fuse into the Holy Sword as she let loose a light cry. Hey, I'm really only here to make a deal, not to put my life on the line. Did you see which living being I killed? No, I didn't kill a single one. Have you ever seen a godfiend as gentle as I am? Enlin hurriedly offered an explanation at the sight of the Holy Maiden's determined expression. The Holy Maiden faltered slightly, and a thoughtful expression appeared on her face. Right at this moment, her green eyes suddenly turned inky black, and black smoke erupted from her petite body. The Holy Maiden let loose a wail of anguish as she plummeted from the sky. The golden holy sword lost its source of energy, and it also began to plummet toward the ground, tearing a fissure over 1,000 feet in length into the ground. Enlin was completely perplexed. What was going on now? He quickly made his way over to the Holy Maiden before she fell to the ground. Hey, what's wrong? Enlin poked the Holy Maiden's little head. Bastard, hurry, let go of me. The Holy Maiden's body trembled slightly in Enlin's hand, and her eyes flickered between green and black. Black smoke emanated from her snowy white skin, materializing into a series of little skulls. and Lin's brows furrowed. This aura, it feels very similar to the aura of a sinister devil. It's also chaotic and contains boundless negative emotions that can cause living beings to fall. However, this isn't the aura of a sinister devil, as the aura of a sinister devil has a special characteristic, which is that it can be rejected by the world. What are you saying? This is the curse of the demonic dragon before it died. The holy maiden furrowed her brows and gritted her teeth as she spoke with difficulty. She could sense that Lin really didn't seem to harbor any enmity toward her, so she had no choice but to explain the source of this power to Lin. Lin was enlightened upon hearing this. Some of the bystanders had said that the holy maiden had returned from slaying the demonic dragon, so it looked like the holy maiden had also been wounded, and Lin was quite experienced in dealing with this type of power that emanated black smoke. This type of power was extremely susceptible to the power of pure yang. This was evident from the fact that Xiao Hong had used a golden light to expel the power of a sinister devil for him. He thought about it for a moment before 4 different balls of flames suddenly appeared in his hand. After being refined by the holy vermilion flame and the holy vermilion bird bloodline, the 4 divine flames were already at the highest level of divine flames. He felt like his divine flames would have no issues dealing with this type of power of darkness. Go on, choose one of the flames. And Lin smiled. What? The holy maiden curled up into a ball with confusion on her face. Demonic star flame, great holy flame, setting moon flame, and heavenly void flame. I want to use one of these 4 divine flames to incinerate you. Pick one. I think the great holy flame might be more effective, and Lin replied. Holy maiden, are you asking me to choose a method of cremation? Tears welled up in the holy maiden's eyes. Have you become stupid from the curse? I'm asking you to choose a flame to expel the curse for you. And Lin pursed his lips. The holy maiden's chest constricted upon hearing this, and she flared up with rage. You're asking a patient to choose a method of treatment at a time like this? Don't you know that time is of the essence? Don't you know that the patient only needs to listen to the doctor? Who's the stupid one here? And Lin thought differently, and he explained patiently, because I'm a doctor who advocates democracy and respect for patients. Holy maiden, then I'll choose this ball of purple flames. The holy maiden pointed at the demonic star flame as black blood trickled down the corner of her lips. She felt that the ball of purple flames was imbued with starlight, and it was extremely romantic and beautiful. Even if she were to be cremated by this beautiful ball of flames, it would still be a beautiful and tragic death. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Who was the one who just said that the patient only needed to listen to the doctor? Had the holy maiden fed his great holy flame to the dogs? Time was of the essence, and he was extremely confident in his divine flames. Any one of the 4 divine flames was extremely bad *SS, so he didn't refuse the holy maiden's request and immediately began to activate the demonic star flame. He pointed a thick finger toward the holy maiden's abdomen, and the demonic star flame transformed into pure yang energy that flowed into the holy maiden's abdomen. He did his best to control his power so that the flame energy wouldn't harm the holy maiden. The black energy began to sizzle as it made contact with the divine flame, and it began to flee. The holy maiden moaned with a blush on her face, and her breathing accelerated. It was working, and Lin's eyes lit up, and he immediately increased his power. Chapter 483. Be gentle. The holy fairy maiden moaned as she crossed her arms over her chest and closed her eyes, as if she was enduring excruciating pain. Endure it. The power of the curse is very tenacious. I have to increase the intensity of the attack. And Lin could sense that the detestable power was trying to escape from the holy fairy maiden's body with all its might. There was even a type of spiritual interference power that was trying to attach itself to her consciousness. You beast! Let go of the holy fairy maiden. Mandel and Harris didn't hear the conversation between Lin and the holy fairy maiden, but they could see the pained expression on the holy fairy maiden's face. They immediately thought that Lin was going to perform some kind of evil ritual, and they flew toward Enlin with all their might. "Don't bother me." A silver light flashed from Enlin's storage ring, and the two Gundams appeared between heaven and earth. Mandel and Harris's breathing faltered at the sight of the massive silver mechanical puppet that had suddenly appeared. Immediately afterward, they were greeted by the sight of a massive palm hurtling through the air toward them. Slap! Slap! The two wholly rank, powerful beings were struck by the sudden attack, and they plummeted to the ground like cannonballs. Enlin's divine flame had already reached a critical juncture in eliminating the curse. He had already forced the power of the curse into a corner of the Holy Fairy Maiden's body. If he were to eliminate the curse from the inside, it was very likely that he would inflict severe damage to her body, so it was best to force it out of her body and then eliminate it. "Little fairy, open your mouth." Enlin suddenly spoke. The Holy Fairy Maiden opened her bright eyes upon hearing this. Her pupils had already become a clear green color again, clearly indicating that the divine flame was very effective. "Open your mouth. I'm going to expel the curse from your mouth." Enlin commanded again. A blush appeared on the Holy Fairy Maiden's delicate little face, and she opened her mouth in embarrassment, revealing her little pink tongue beneath her sparkling white teeth. Enlin focused his gaze, and the divine flame on his fingertip surged toward the Holy Fairy Maiden from all directions, quickly forcing the curse toward the Holy Fairy Maiden's mouth. Perhaps it was due to the curse's survival instincts, but it began to escape from the Holy Fairy Maiden's mouth. A pitch-black smoke salamander appeared in the void, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. It was in urgent need of a host, so when it saw Enlin, it roared and pounced on Enlin. "You overestimate yourself." Enlin waved a hand, and the four divine fires turned into a terrifying incinerator that instantly extinguished the curse origin. The Holy Fairy Maiden crawled up from Enlin's palm. She was sweating profusely, but there was a grateful expression on her face as she extended a slight bow. "Thank you for expelling my curse. You really are different from the other giant god fiends." "I'm not a giant god fiend," Enlin said discontentedly. "I admit that I'm here to obtain something, but I'm also here with the purpose of making a deal. Yes, I'm very sincere." The two Gundams returned to Enlin's storage ring after pummeling Mandel and Hariel into a pulp. "Look, aside from those two underlings of yours, everyone else is completely unscathed." Enlin pointed at the people on the ground. The Holy Fairy Maiden had clearly noticed this as well. She didn't know why Enlin was fighting the male elf, but she knew that he was trying to minimize the number of casualties. With this in mind, an awkward and apologetic expression appeared on her face. "Mr. Giant, I was too rash, and I accidentally killed the black praying mantis in a fit of rage. I'll make sure to compensate you for this." "Black praying mantis?" Enlin faltered slightly before a grief-stricken expression appeared on his face. "Sigh. The black praying mantis was my brother for many years. Before coming here, I promised him that I would take him to see the world with me. Who would have thought that he would die so soon? It's not your fault. After all, we trespassed on the Divine Lake first. It's all my fault for not protecting him." Tears welled up in Enlin's eyes as he looked up into the sky, as if he didn't want to shed tears. The Holy Fairy Maiden's mouth gaped open, but she didn't know what to say. This was the first time she had seen the giant god fiend display such an emotional side. She had thought that the black praying mantis was only a subordinate or servant of the giant, but who would have thought that he was his brother? That meant that she had killed the giant's brother with her own two hands. Even so, the giant still said that he didn't blame her and chose to save her. I did something unforgivable. What should I do?" The Holy Fairy Maiden pursed her lips and murmured to herself. Right at this moment, Enlin brought out a second-grade spirit pill from his storage ring, the Spirit Wood Spring Pill. "Here, this spirit pill has an extremely strong healing effect on injuries, and it can also nourish the spirit. It's perfect for your body that's been severely injured by the outbreak of the curse. Hurry up and eat it," he said with a smile as he handed the Wood Spring Spirit Pill to the Holy Fairy Maiden. The Fairy Saintess stretched out her slender arms and hugged the pill that was half the size of her body. Tears welled up in her emerald eyes as she said, "I killed your brother, so why are you still giving me this pill? She looked at the smiling Lin, and she was suddenly struck by the feeling that this giant was so gentle and beautiful, just like the dazzling and mesmerizing sunlight on a spring day. She could even detect the powerful life force imbued within the pill. This was definitely a divine pill. But now, the giant was giving it to her to heal her injuries. That's a different matter altogether. I was at fault for trespassing on the divine lake, so I can understand your reaction. You should heal your injuries first. Then we can discuss our deal, and Lin said with a gentle expression. The holy fairy maiden nodded with excitement as she opened her mouth to chew on the spirit pill, creating an extremely adorable sight. By the way, little fairy, what's your name? And Lin suddenly asked. My name is Tina, and you? The holy fairy maiden asked as she chewed on the spirit pill. My name is Lin. Also, I'm really not a giant god fiend. I'm just a slightly larger human. And Lin smiled. All right, giant Lin. Tina nodded like a little chick pecking at rice. All of the powerful beings from all over the central city stood rooted to the spot with confusion on their faces at the sight of the holy fairy chatting happily with the giant god fiend. What was going on? Could it be that they had come in the wrong way? Wasn't there an earth-shattering battle taking place just a moment ago? Why was everything so peaceful now? Mandel and Hariel were the most confused and aggrieved people. They lay on the ground like useless fish with tears flowing down their faces. How did things turn out like this? Could it be that the battle just then was fake? Did the holy fairy eat the divine pill that the giant god fiend gave her? The healing effect was fantastic, but they were also injured from the battle. So why didn't they? They stared blankly at the most powerful being in the central city interacting harmoniously with the giant god fiend, and their hearts were filled with grief and sorrow. They felt like they were still living in a dream. And Lin was also very thankful that he had brought the black praying mantis with him. It was all thanks to him that he was able to earn the holy fairy maiden's favor with such ease. Now, it was time for the transaction. The holy fairy maiden's digestive abilities were extremely strong, and after eating the wood spring pill, most of her injuries were instantly healed. I can sense that the life force energy within my body has increased a lot. Even my cultivation base, which has been stagnant for a long time, is beginning to loosen up. The holy fairy maiden exclaimed with elation on her face. Fairies are extremely sensitive to life force energy, so you'll be able to unleash the full potential of this type of life force pill. Congratulations, little Na. And Lin congratulated with a smile. The holy fairy maiden faltered slightly upon hearing this, before pouting with her hands on her hips. How can you call me little Na? I may be small, but I'm a fairy who has lived for over 10,000 years. I might even be older than you. And Lin's eyes lit up at the sight of the holy fairy maiden's fuming expression. Adorable. A fairy who had lived for over 10,000 years was actually so young. Could it be that all fairies were naturally adorable? Oh, perhaps being small could also increase one's adorableness. For example, a clown was very ugly when it was big, but it was adorably ugly when it was small. I'm a human who has lived for over 20,000 years, so there's nothing wrong with me calling you little Na, and Lin replied with a smile. Really? The holy fairy maiden's green eyes widened in astonishment. Of course. How did I grow from such a small human to such a big man? It's all because of time. And Lin nodded with a serious expression. That sounds reasonable. The holy fairy maiden nodded in agreement. A pleased smile appeared on Lin's face. Seeing as you've recovered from your injuries, let's get down to business. After all, I'm here to obtain something from a central city. The holy fairy maiden nodded before replying in a domineering manner. All right, tell me what you want, and I'll do my best to satisfy you. Chapter 484. And Lin pointed to the 4 golden crystal pagodas beside the divine lake. I want those 4 pagodas. Name your price. The holy fairy maiden was astonished to hear this. You want the Holy Spirit Towers? And Lin nodded. That's right, I want the Holy Spirit Towers. He didn't understand all this nonsense. All he knew was that the core of this tower was the realm essence crystals, and they were of the highest grade. A conflicted expression appeared on Tina's face as she shook her head. No, The Holy Spirit Towers are the most precious treasures that Pangu left behind after he created this Tai Chu continent. Even though they aren't very useful and only serve to nurture the divine lake, they represent an extremely important meaning. So I can't trade them. And Lin's lips twitched upon hearing this. Pangu did indeed create the Tai Chu continent, but are you sure he created this continent of yours? What do you mean by that, Jine and Lin? Isn't this continent the Tai Chu continent? Tina asked with a perplexed expression, and Lin took out his Oppa 12 and opened the photo album. Look at these images, he said as he flipped through them. Tina's emerald eyes blinked with curiosity as she looked at the images on the phone. Huh, this is a floating continent. It's so beautiful. What is this place? These trees are so tall and huge. Are people moving around on them? It looks a little like the world tree that was recorded in ancient texts. My God, how could there be such a vast lake? It really is boundless. No, this should be the ocean that was recorded in ancient texts. So there really are tall mountains that pierce into the clouds. Just how tall are these mountains? Tina became more and more excited as she looked at the images. After a long while, she raised her head, and her emerald eyes shone with a bright light. Jine and Lin, where did you record these scenes? Why haven't I seen any of them? And Lin smiled. They were all taken on the Tai Chu continent. You're spouting nonsense. If such beautiful scenery was taken on the Tai Chu continent, how could I not know about it? They must have been discovered in some mystic realm, right? Tina was extremely excited, and Lin shook his head. They really were recorded on the Tai Chu continent, but not on this continent. They're on the real Tai Chu continent. The place is boundlessly vast. The scenes I've recorded can't even encompass 1/10,000th of the Tai Chu continent. The difference between the Tai Chu continent and this continent is like the difference between an ocean and a lake. No, it's like the difference between an ocean and a puddle. Tina's slender body shuddered, and she fell into a daze for a few seconds before shaking her head. That's impossible. That's impossible. There are close to 1,000 countries in this world, and there are countless races and races. It's such a vast world. So how could it be as small as you say it is? And Lin heaved a faint sigh. You call a cage that's been completely isolated by the power of extreme frost the entire world? You can reach the edge of this world in a day's flight. From the information I've gathered, your world can indeed be referred to as the Tai Chu continent, but it's a Tai Chu continent that's constantly crumbling. As for the land you know, it's only a small fragment of the crumbling Tai Chu continent. How would you know just how vast this world is if you haven't ventured out into it? Tina stared at Lin with a dazed expression, as if she had been stunned by Lin's words. After a short while, she shook her head. It's fake. Everything you said is fake. You must be lying to me, and Lin rolled his eyes. What do I get out of lying to you? The benefit is obtaining these 4 Holy Spirit Towers. Aren't you trying to prove that the Holy Spirit Towers aren't treasures left behind by Pangu? Tina retorted stubbornly. And Lin was astonished to hear this. Holy F *CK. That makes sense. That really does seem to be the case. Hee, you call these Holy Spirit Towers? They're actually called realm essence crystals. There are tens of millions of them on this crumbling continent. I came to this world to collect realm essence crystals. They're not as valuable as you think they are. Pangu isn't so bored as to throw realm essence crystals all over the place. And Lin retorted. How could that be? Tina's body swayed. Why is it that I'm so powerful, but you've only heard of me today? It's like I just popped out from a rock. That's because I'm from the Tai Chu continent. I'm an outsider. And Lin added insult to injury. You could also be a hermit who's only just arrived in this world. Tina's worldview hadn't been completely shattered yet, and she retorted stubbornly. And Lin heaved a faint sigh. Looks like I'll have to give you some proof. Come out, my treasures. He roared, and a silver light flashed from his storage ring. Come out, my spirit pills and spirit fruits. In the blink of an eye, over 100 spirit pills and spirit fruits appeared in front of Tina. Tina's mouth gaped open. Such powerful energy fluctuations. They're all divine rank supreme treasures. Over 100 divine rank pills and divine rank fruits. On this continent, All divine rank pills and fruits were extremely rare and precious. The number of divine rank pills and fruits Lynn had just released was many times more than what she had ever seen in her life. "Come out, my spirit tools." 36 spirit tools instantly appeared in the air, all of which exuded bursts of energy fluctuations. Tina took a deep breath. These weapons, these energy fluctuations are even more powerful than divine tools. They're all holy tools. She looked down at her golden longsword, and an expression of shock appeared on her face. Her golden longsword was a holy tool that had been passed down from generation to generation. It was a top-tier holy tool. However, there were a few weapons here whose energy fluctuations were comparable to her golden longsword, and Lynn was very pleased with Tina's reaction. But he wasn't done yet. "Come out, my immortal pills, immortal fruits, and immortal tools." There was a 7th grade immortal pill, a 7th grade immortal pill, a yin-yang true energy pill, 3 8th grade immortal fruits, a 3rd grade infernal blood immortal fruit, a 1st grade serene immortal herb, a fire blood divine tree, a dead realm flower, a diamond soul, an ethereal spirit bone, a demonic blood orb, an ice holy lotus, and a ghost crystal armor. There was an elementary rank immortal tool, the heart lotus eye sword, a high rank immortal tool, the realm piercing nail, and the divine flame bead. The vital energy of heaven and earth surged as soon as the treasures appeared. Yin and yang intertwined, evil ghosts wailed, the god of fire ascended, and a world of ice and frost appeared. The holy fairy maiden's mouth gaped open in astonishment as she stared at the treasures before her. The energy fluctuations emanating from each and every one of these treasures far exceeded her knowledge. These were definitely above the holy rank. She had never seen such powerful treasures in this world. However, she was seeing a whole bunch of them here. How could this be? Tina shook her little head from side to side, and her long golden hair fluttered in the wind like waves, reflecting the turmoil in her heart. "What are these things? Why do you have all these things?" A faint smile appeared on Lynn's face. "These are the treasures I collected on the real Tai Chu continent. There are many more powerful and valuable treasures on the Tai Chu continent. This is the worst." Tina's body shuddered upon hearing this, and she opened her mouth to speak, but tears began to flow from her eyes before she even had a chance to say anything. Her worldview had finally been shattered by Lynn's display of wealth in the face of these dazzling treasures. "Wah!" Tina choked with sobs. So I've been a frog in a well.